have a draft equity framework actually already developed. We're going to come to the board with that in October. We're rolling out V2, and we just got a grant from the state to increase or expand our dual enrollment opportunities, so that will be a big focus for this school year. So happy to take any comments or questions from you all on professional learning curriculum.
Questions from board members? Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Chutaya. I'm really excited that this continues to move forward, and the board has, supported it with funding through the budget process. I'd
like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, October 2nd meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could please stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Safaridis is excused. Ms. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Castiglioli?
Here.
Mr. Hirsch?
Here.
Mr. Cater?
Present.
Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Mr. Mortimer?
Present.
Mr. Sadi?
Present.
And Chairman Quish.
And I'm here as well. First order of business is 2 Tudor Road, aka 0 Old Point Road, Zone R75, referral pursuant to CGS Section 824 to approve a lease agreement between the Boys Club of Milford, Inc. and the City of Milford on map 035, block 107, parcel 85A, of which the City of Milford is the owner. Is there somebody from the city who is going to present this? Okay, then this will go to the next meeting. Next order of business is 25 Shell Avenue, Zone R75, petition of Timothy Hollister, Esquire, for a site plan review with a CAM for a 20-unit residential building proposed under 8-30G on map 27, block 444, parcel 16, of which C Shell LLC, care of Fortitude Capital LLC, is the owner. Is the applicant here? If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, of the board. I'm attorney Tim Hollister with the firm of Hinckley Allen in Hartford, representing the applicant C Shell LLC. I think it's been about 6 or so years since I was here. Nice to see you all. With me tonight as presenters are Jeff Gordon, Codispoti Associates, Bob Wee, Codispoti Associates, Sam Gardner, architect, Greg Weiss and Gardner Architects, New Haven, and Steve Ullman from Alfred Benesh and Company is our traffic engineer. We reviewed the procedural requirements. They've all been met. I would note that even though not required, we did send a notice about tonight's hearing to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property, just letting them know of the hearing tonight, the content of the application, and basically where to find more information. We're here tonight on a coastal site plan and site plan only. The application consists mainly of a narrative package dated July 12th, civil and architectural plans submitted on the same day. And then we submitted a revised set of plans through Mr. Sulkus and your City Square platform on September 20th. And then there were some supplemental materials dated September 26th. And then Mr. Sulkus gave us site plan comments and then an administrative review, and we submitted as late as this morning to him by email a final response to his comments, and we will discuss those in our presentation tonight. So he has those electronically, and the second item that I gave you tonight explains those, but we'll go through those when we go through our presentation. So one thing that's important is explain to you, this is an application under General Statutes 8-30G, known as the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, and that statute and cases from our court system interpreting it create an unusual feature that's really specifically designed for applications like this one. Relatively small property, relatively small development. We are in the R75 zone, but we are asking for site plan approval with a site plan that does not completely meet your R75 regulations. Now, why are we able to do that? Because under 830G, applications can only be denied if the site plan presents a substantial public health or safety concern. And back as far as 1995, the Connecticut appellate courts have held that if there is a difference between the regulations, the underlying regulations of the site plan that does not rise to the level of a health and safety plan, then that's not a valid denial or valid reason for denial, but it is an application that can be approved. So another way to say that is if the site plan presents no health and safety issues, it is approvable. Mr. Sulkus, if I could go to slide number 2. Thank you. This is an aerial that sort of got stretched presenting wise. So you have a copy of each one of these slides in the thicker of the 2 packages that I just distributed to you, so you can follow along. So this is an aerial of the neighborhood. Obviously, it's what you would call beachfront property. The subject being in the middle lower right. Thank you, Mr. Sulkus. The area is 0.92 acres, 18,400 square feet of which, a little less than 25%, is between a retaining wall and the mean high water mark and the beach, and that is untouched by the application that is before you tonight. As you can see and as you know, the area is primarily single-family residential, but there are some existing multifamily uses, including the subject property, which is a building that dates to 1930, somewhat in disrepair over the years. But the existing structure has 9 units, and back in November of last year, there was a variance application by this applicant to renovate the building but retain 9 units, but that was denied by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So this is a different attempt to redevelop the property. Mr. Sulkus, if we can go to slide number 3. So we are proposing, thank you, we're proposing a new structure, 20 units in one building, 12 two-bedroom units, 8 one-bedroom units. The one-bedroom units will range from 710 to 839 square feet. The two-bedroom units from 965 to 1,222 square feet. In terms of applications and reviews, we received an approval from the Sewer Commission. Obviously, the property is already connected to sewer, but they allowed us to make some minor adjustments, and that was granted on August 30th of this year. The Fire Marshal Suden last week, after raising initial concerns, met with the applicant and gave us an approval of the revised plans as revised to September 20th. John Goucher of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection reviewed the coastal application, had a couple of what I believe were minor comments, also met with the development team, and the revised plans were submitted last week and provided to him last week. I do not know whether, I have not seen a response from him to the revised plans, so our assumption is that we met all of his concerns. There was a consultation with your city engineer who provided comments. We provided revised plans and written responses last week, and he then responded that the plans were satisfactory to him in a letter that we received this morning. Mr. Sulkus provided 2 sets of comments, and we provided written responses last week, and this morning architecturally, and Mr. Gardner, our architect, will review those. And then we have in the July 12th package, will serve letters from the various utility companies. In terms of the affordable unit plan, very important to understand that there is an affordability plan in your package, and I believe it is at tab number 7. But in that affordability plan is what we call Schedule B, and that is a minimum set of specifications applicable to all units, all those that will be maximum rent and maximum income restricted. So all units, whether they're market rate or affordable, with minimum specifications of materials, quality, amenities, to make sure that there is not just comparability on these items, but indeed equivalence across the entire building. 6 units will be affordable. Our plan calls for them to be dispersed throughout the first and second floor. And remember, there's only 20 units in the building. There's only 6 affordable units to meet the minimum 30% requirement of 830G. But there are 3 residential floors, and we have the affordable units on the first 2 floors, but spread out among that floor plan. And we may come back to that issue a little bit later. But 3 of the units will be at what's called 80% of median income, at 3 at 60%. So with the affordable units, the maximum income, the range of maximum incomes among the 6 units will be between $53,000 and $86,000 a month, and the maximum rent will be between $1,220 per month and $1,820 per month. And you may be saying to yourself, well, $1,820, that is a function of the fact that the median income in Connecticut has gone up year after year over the last 5 or 6 years, and the median income statewide is now $112,000. But so we are following the 830G formula, but it is I guess you would say it's a middle income program with respect to these units. So what I'm going to now do is turn it over to the rest of our development team in the following order, and I've asked them to be done in about 35 minutes total. First, Jeff Gordon from Codispoti will talk about the existing conditions and the proposed layout. His colleague, Mr. Weiwei, will talk about stormwater management. Steve Ullman, our traffic engineer, will talk about traffic, and then Mr. Sam Gardner, our architect, will go through the building architecture, materials, amenities, and energy efficiency. So I'm not going to interrupt their presentation. I'm just going to have them come up in the order I just gave you. Thank you. So Jeff Gordon.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Gordon. I'm an environmental planner and a licensed landscape architect here in the state of Connecticut. I'm president of Codispoti and Associates, doing business at 263 Boston Post Road in the town of Orange. My voice is not going to last long, so I ask that you bear with me a little bit today. Attorney Hollister did touch a bit on this existing site, the zone, the size of the parcel, and some of the surrounding uses. So I'd like to just focus a little bit on the layout of the site. Right now, you have that existing 1930s building. If we go to, I believe it's slide number 6, Dave. Okay, that one looks good. On the site plan, what we did here is, again, we oriented the building perpendicular to Shell Avenue to maintain the view corridor from the road to provide water views for the tenants. This allocated a double-loaded parking lot with an oversized travel aisle through the center, which is something that we discussed with Marshall Student, and this allows for the capacity of emergency equipment. He required us to note that the profile of that travel lane would be dependent upon the soil boring test done for the building to make sure that it has the carrying capacity for the equipment for the city of Milford. The garage parking is for 16 vehicles. There is surface parking of 20 vehicles with the accessible parking spaces right immediately adjacent to the entrance core of the building. So the parking ratio generally would be 1 per 1-bedroom unit, 2 for 2-bedroom units for 32. We have 36, and again, 2 of them are going to be allocated as ADA compliant spaces. The landscaping plan, if we move on, we've utilized an array of native and coastal plant materials. Also, we have taken into consideration areas for snow removal, utilizing plant materials, ornamental grasses, hydrangeas, ones that die back in the wintertime, so if we put snow there, it's not going to adversely affect the landscaping plan. So we took care of that. On the next sheet, we have a lighting plan, and the upper left-hand corner, there's a little bit of a notation that in order to comply with the city's standard of no spillage, we're going to be a little bit light on that corner, but there is residual light from the street lights that would comport with that and make that functional. The site is serviced by underground water, electrical, sanitary, natural gas. In the comments from Mr. Paluski, we verified the sanitary line that's there. In our discussions, we basically had a workshop with the fire marshal. We had a second workshop with DEEP and the city engineer, and there were some comments that came out of that which have been accommodated with the plan. One of the things that we did find required, you can almost see at the top of the plan there, that dark spot there was an extra fire hydrant that was added and requested by the fire marshal in order to allow for the location of a fire apparatus to hook up to that hydrant nearby and be able to serve the building. So we were able to do that. There's no change on the site that's going to take place between the retaining wall, the beach, and the high water line, save that just a boat rack, which would be located beyond the 100-foot offset of the mean high water line. Other than that, there's not going to be any activity there except for discharge on stormwater, which Mr. Weiwei will address. So obviously, after meeting with staff professionals, we're confident that there are no safety or health concerns. All new development shall be in the FEMA Zone X portion of the site. Floor elevations are set well above the adjoining flood elevation of VE 13. We're at 17 and change. The existing building has a half level below, so they're definitely below that elevation. So in this way, we're certainly improving things. It's parking on the ground level. There's a trash room that will be discussed in the architecture that's segregated from the rest of the building use. Again, the building is oriented in a driveway designed to facilitate access for the fire apparatus. We added a feature of balconies on 2 sides of the building. There was some discussion and maybe a consideration to even adding balconies on the water side of the building. We're open to that, but it's not necessary, but that was to add additional access way. So that really is a walkthrough on the plans to give you a good sense of the drainage that has been considered. I'll give our attention to Mr. Bob Weiwei.
Thank you.
You get back to slide number 4, David. Good evening. My name is Robert Weiwei. I'm a licensed professional engineer and principal with the firm Codispoti & Associates. What I'd like to do is just walk you through briefly the stormwater management plan that's been proposed for this development. For the existing conditions right now, we have the existing building as well as the gravel parking areas that basically right now drain out to Shell. There's a ridge line that runs through the property parallel to Shell, about 75 feet back from the roadway system. So everything to the front side of that is draining to Shell. Everything to the rear is draining down towards the retaining wall and Long Island Sound. So all told, right now, there's approximately 3,600 square feet of impervious roof area. In addition to that, there's also the gravel areas both on the left and right side of the properties. Under the proposed conditions, the impervious surface coverage is going to increase to approximately 16,200 square feet. As part of that, you could expect to see increases in peak rates and volumes of runoff, and hence the need for the development of a stormwater management plan, which is we've included as part of the submittal package. Basically, the main goal of the stormwater management system is to provide for water quality enhancements from the runoff from the roof areas as well as the parking areas. And there's basically three components that are composed in the management system. The first is the collection system, which will basically be picking up all the roof leaders, piping them underground through a roof drain system, and carrying that back to our water quality structure, where the water quality structure will also be receiving runoff from the paved parking area. And all that flow will go through the pre-treatment, or the water quality structure, which is considered to be a pre-treatment measure. And that's a hydrodynamic separator where the water will flow through there, and the bulk of the suspended solids and floatables will be removed from the stormwater as it flows through the structure. The main part of the system is the treatment system itself, which is going to be the gallery system. We've proposed 8 total galleries that are 2 foot high by 4 foot wide by 8 foot long. And the galleries have been sized to basically contain the full water quality volume runoff from that particular, or from the tributary watershed area. So basically, the water will be collected in the gallery system, allowed to infiltrate down into the underlying soils. And during heavier rainfall events, when the capacity of the galleries are exceeded, it will flow back out through yard drain 1, and then there is an overflow that will go through the existing retaining wall and then into a scour hole on the downhill side of the retaining wall. With respect to peak rates of runoff are really not applicable for this development for the simple reason that we are immediately adjacent to the Long Island Sound, and hence there's no need for control of peak rates of runoff. But with that being said, the gallery system will provide significant reductions in runoff volumes as well as peak rates for the lower frequency storms. The final component is in working in conjunction with the MS4 permit, which the city of Milford falls under. We've also met the requirements for the MS4 by providing stormwater disconnection. As I mentioned previously, the front 75 feet of the property right now flows to Shell Avenue, and Shell Avenue, at which point when it gets onto Shell Avenue, would be connected to the storm drainage system further down the road. By changing the topography around a little bit and creating a high point just at the back part of the apron, we're now able to prevent approximately 10,300 square feet of surface runoff from getting to Shell Avenue, and that's all now being directed to the rear of the property and going through the stormwater management system that's being proposed. So if the stormwater management system is installed according to the plans, it's our opinion, or my opinion, that there will be no impacts to the neighbors or to the stormwater for the particular project, and that there will not be any public health or safety concerns for the particular project. We've also provided a detailed soil erosion sediment control plan, which I believe is on slide 8, which features pretty much the typical S&E measures that you would find on any other project. We've provided for a construction entrance coming onto the driveway system. There's some silt fences and hay bales that will be provided around the internal storm drainage system. And that's pretty much it with regards to stormwater. And then we do have the scour hole for energy dissipation down on the lower side of the retaining wall. So that's a quick overview of the stormwater management plan and the soil erosion control plan. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Steve Ullman, and he'll enlighten you to the traffic issues for the project.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Ullman. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut and a professional traffic operations engineer. I'm employed by Benesch Associates of Glastonbury, Connecticut, 120 Hebron Avenue. I've been doing traffic engineering since 1986. Hate to say that, it's been 37 years. I've been in the consulting business. As has been stated, this site will be served by a single driveway to Shell Avenue. About the same location as the existing westerly most drive. Shell Avenue is a local street that's approximately 26 feet wide in the vicinity of the site, with parking allowed on the south side, but parking prohibited on the north side. There is no posted speed limit on Shell Avenue. Previous discussions I've had with the police department, that means the speed limits they're going to enforce is 25 to 30 miles an hour. Sight lines were physically measured along Shell Avenue from the proposed driveway. To the east, the sight line extends all the way to the intersection of Seaside Avenue, so you can see all the way to people start coming on Shell Avenue. To the west, it exceeds 400 feet. 400 feet is the minimum required sight distance for 35 miles an hour, which exceeds what would be the reasonable speed we would see on Shell Avenue. The parking on the south side does restrict sight lines towards Seaside, but drivers will pull forward to where they can see, and they can see clear sight all the way to Seaside. Crash data was obtained from the University of Connecticut Crash Repository for the past 5.5 years, from January 1st, 2018 to June of 2023. And along Shell Avenue and along Seaside Avenue, approximately 200 feet north and south of Shell. That data shows there's a single crash at the address of 45 Shell Avenue, where a vehicle backed into a stone pillar. There are no other crash patterns in the vicinity that would indicate anything, changes need to be made. Impact of the proposed development, traffic impact. Traffic impact is determined by using the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, 11th edition, dated 2021. This publication contains trip data for several multifamily housing units. Multifamily housing low-rise, multifamily housing mid-rise, and multifamily housing high-rise. Low-rise is typically 1 to 3 stories, mid-rise is 3 to 10, high-rise is anything over 10. However, one of the caveats with the mid-rise 3 is typically it includes elevators. So the existing site development and the proposed site development was I used land use 220, which is multifamily housing, low rise. Did it for 2 reasons. It seems to fit better than the mid-rise, and I found when I crunched the numbers that the actual peak generation for the low rise was slightly higher than the mid-rise. So I'm giving you a more conservative estimate of the traffic impact. To develop how many new trips will be generated by the development, I first calculated how many trips would be generated by the 9-unit development, how many trips would be generated by the 20-unit development, subtracted the 9 from the 20 to come up with new trips. That shows that the new development will add 71 trips to the roadway network for the daily trip. The AM peak period is 4 new trips, 1 entering, 3 exiting. The PM peak period is 4 new trips, 3 entering, 1 exiting, and on a Saturday midday, 4 trips, 2 entering, 2 exiting. Our professional opinion is that this number of trips to the development is minimal and will not affect the traffic operations on the surrounding roadway network. Based on the findings, it's our professional opinion that the construction of proposed apartments at 25 Shell Avenue, Milford, will not impede or adversely affect traffic operations or traffic safety on the adjacent roadway network. Turn it over to the site.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sam Gardner. I'm a licensed architect in Connecticut and a principal at the firm Greg Weiss and Gardner Architects. We are located at 151 East Street in New Haven. So we'll jump into the plans. Dave, do you mind going back to the site plan? Oh, it's beyond, yeah.
And if you could, please bring the mic up a little bit. This sound system isn't so good.
No problem.
Thank you.
I always have that problem. It's always a little low. Okay, so, Dave, would you mind keep going to the architectural site plan? One more. Oh, I guess everything's out of order, so. We'll go back, I guess. There we are. Perfect. Okay. All right, so this building is 3 stories of residential over 1 story of parking. The building is designed so that the upper story looks like it's within the roof. So it reads as a 3-story building with a roof structure, okay? This layout of the plan was something that we just delivered to Dave, where we were integrating the structural layout with the parking, just to show that the parking was going to work. But the basic plan is, from the parking lot, you come into a lobby. The lobby has an elevator and room for like an Amazon area where you can collect boxes. That can be entered also from the parking garage. And then pretty much the rest of the rooms are a mechanical room towards the street to receive utilities, a trash room separated from the rest of the building directly to allow the movement of trash out to the street for pickup, and a mechanical room, which will probably be the sprinkler pump room. There are 2, north and south, there are 2 exit stairs, one along Shell, one towards the rear. Okay, next slide, please. So the basic layout is, an array of 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units. There are 12 twos, 8 1-bedrooms. The 2-bedroom units all the units have a sort of an open plan with the kitchen, living room, dining area open to each other. And then there's bedrooms. The 2 bedrooms have, one of the bedrooms has an ensuite bathroom. So that so the 2-bedroom units have 2 bathrooms that go along with them, but one of them is en suite. One is open to the rest of the apartment. Planned amenities include washer, dryers, plenty of storage, closets, just what you would see in a market rate type apartment. On the and another important amenity is that every unit has a balcony and has access to open space and views from their apartment. The roof, the upper level, what we call the 3rd level apartments, those are all 2 bedrooms, and they have decks that are actually above them. They're on the roof, like you would see with, typical shoreline buildings that use the roof to get views to the water. So that's the basic layout of the units. We can jump to the elevations, maybe. So, we're using a palette or a style here, which I would call Connecticut shoreline. It's shingle style. It sort of takes its cues from a number of the surrounding neighborhoods and buildings. We have clapboard horizontal siding. We have shingles along the ground plane. We're using a field stone type veneer, just regular 3-tab shingle roof. So it's going to look very sort of contextual and compatible with the surrounding homes and neighborhood. But you can see where the renderings will show you better the way these units look, because elevations are very flat, and so I don't know, Dave, if you could jump to. Oh, let's first talk about the materials. I gave you a quick overview, but we have areas of shingle up above in the gables. We have clapboard in the sort of the body of the building, and we have the field stone along the base, and the windows will be a black frame, divided light style window. Okay. This is just a typical section to show. So here's the rendering from Shell. It sort of gives you an idea that each unit is either facing the side of the building or to the rear, and has the opportunity to take advantage of water views. But you'll see that the third level is really embedded in the roof, the roof structure. And that was all specifically to keep the scale of the building lower. This is the view from the parking lot, which would be, I guess, a westerly view. The tower unit is actually the elevator. There are some amenities in the building upstairs. There's going to be a community room plus a deck that's just outside the community room, which will be open to all the tenants. Other amenities is there is some lawn where folks can hang out, and then of course there's the beach, which is right there for use by the tenants. One thing I wanted to point out is that the garage doors, which are glass and aluminum frame, the fire marshal required us or asked us to, in case of an emergency, that those doors automatically open so that there would be immediate access by fire personnel into the building. Also, on the roof, we're giving them a path and an access to the roof through some attic levels that come right off those two staircases at either end. So we were responding to the request to make this building as safe as possible. Other fire safety amenities, I guess, or features are, it's a fully sprinklered building. There's going to be a standpipe in the stairs that faces Shell Avenue. So again, fire personnel will be able to hook up there and get water to various levels. In terms of energy efficiency, this building, by necessity, has to meet the current Connecticut energy code, which basically means the energy code, state energy code now, is equivalent to LEED Silver. So that covers insulation, it covers the issues around air infiltration. You have to have an airlock for coming in. So this is going to be essentially a state-of-the-art building based on Connecticut code. And generally, I would say, this was a process where we were meeting with the fire marshal and we were trying to get a good handle on any potential safety concerns. It's my professional opinion that there will be no health or safety concerns in this building. And that summarizes, that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to conclude our initial presentation, I will say that I hope you have the impression that the site plan does not present any health or safety issues, reviewed and approved basically by all reviewers, city staff. I hope you agree it's a nice design, and the amenities are going to be enjoyed by all tenants. So I'll stop here with our initial presentation. Obviously, after public comment and questions, I may have some closing remarks, but that's what we have to present tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi, actually, Mr. Sadi, if you'd wait. David, would you weigh in as you see fit?
Generally, I think the application is very good as 830Gs go that we have seen. But there's one issue, there's a couple of issues that need to be brought to your attention. I could read my report in its entirety, but I'll just, it has been submitted for the record, but I want to talk about unit equivalency, which is important in an 830G application. So unit equivalency, there appears to be a lack of unit equivalency for the fourth floor units as compared to the second floor and third floor units. And just for clarification, you've heard this evening floors, you've heard stories. I'm putting this in here as our regulations have it because we don't recognize stories, we recognize floors. So just for clarification. There appears to be a lack of unit equivalency for the fourth floor units as compared to both the second floor and third floor units as currently proposed by the applicant. These units are 1,222 square feet compared to the other two-bedroom units in the building, which are 965 square feet. These units also include private rooftop decks on the fifth level, in addition to balconies found on the fourth level. The fourth floor also contains an amenity room that may serve the entire building, but appears to be conveniently located for the fourth floor tenant use. It is recommended that 2 of the fourth floor units be set aside as affordable to allow all unit types within the building to be made accessible to both the 80% and 60% median income applicants. These two-bedroom units, with their increased size and amenities, do not appear to be equivalent to the affordable two-bedroom units found elsewhere in the building. 2 of the two-bedroom units, one at 80% and one at 60% median income level, found on a combination of floors 2 and 3, could be made market rate, maintaining the minimum required 30% affordable that is required. The applicant would be welcome to increase the number of affordable units above the minimum required 30%, which equals 6 units. And then the other issue that is important is in the affordability plan, the applicant needs to update the contact information for the reporting entity. They're not specifying a reporting entity. Mr. Hollister, in his letter he sent to me earlier today, and I'm sure he'll chime in, said that they were going to do that once the units started leasing. But in any event, if the board tonight moves us forward, the recommendation is that this application be approved, but it be approved with the modifications that I mentioned regarding the fourth floor units and the reporting entity.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Attorney Hollister.
Good evening, sir.
Just for the record, we appreciate the paperwork you provided to us, but most of us have been looking down at an iPad or some other ability to read it. And for the record, we're not looking down, not listening, we're just watching it. That being said, I did have a question about the equivalency that was mentioned by Mr. Sulkus. I'll leave that for a different moment, but my major concern is we have not seen one of these for a number of years, and we don't see anything on the plans that deal with any solar energy. Why was that not considered? And if it was, explain why we're not having any solar panels and like put up there.
Okay, I'm going to let Mr. Gardner address
I
that.
appreciate that, thank you.
I mean, generally, my response would be that the roof could accommodate solar panels. We didn't specifically include them because that was something we were going to, take on down the road. But what roof there is, when you take out for the roof decks, could accommodate some solar panels.
Thank you very much. And back to Attorney Hollister. The other question I was having was about the equivalency. And if you can go back through that for a minute. A lot of paperwork, excellent presentation, but it seems to me that there should be equal on every floor. And if you have a response to Mr. Sulkas's comments, we'd appreciate it now. Thank you.
Yes. And Mr. Sulkas was very clear and professional in sharing his comments, and we had an exchange. So let me give you my response. First of all, regarding the identification of the contact person, for now, the contact person is the applicant, but even if this is approved and we start building, we won't be leasing for at least a year, and that's why at this stage, affordability plans are always just submission draft. What we don't know is what the median income in Connecticut will be a year from now or 18 months from now when we actually start leasing. So affordability plans change every year, and it's part of our responsibility as the property owner to provide the commission and Mr. Sulkas with an annual update on the change in the incomes and sometimes a change in which units are affordable. So, and the contact information for the administrator is part of that. But it is our obligation before we start leasing and at any time after that, if there's a change, to let the city know who's in charge of the affordability covenants in the plan. So, and that is in the plan. That's our representation. So I can say the applicant is the administrator for now, but they might appoint a third party properly trained to that function at a later time. But regarding this unit equivalency, first of all, the requirement under the statute is that the units be dispersed throughout the building, meaning not concentrated in any one part of the development. There is no requirement that they be mathematically equal among each floor. And I have done 150 affordability plans over the last 35 years, and I can just tell you that is how the statute was written, how the regulations were written, and how the practice has developed. Second thing is that the units are required to be comparable, not identical, and not equivalent. So I don't agree with the use of the word unit equivalency. Comparability it doesn't mean that there has to be exactly the same square footage in the market rate and the affordable units. The comparability is achieved by this affordability plan, Schedule B, that I talked about before, which you heard Mr. Gardner say this, there's a specified minimum quality of materials, amenities, appliances and so forth, energy efficiency among all the units, so that really when someone's living in the unit, one unit may be a little bigger, one's a little smaller, but the experience of living in the unit is pretty much the same throughout the building. That is what is meant by comparability. Now, next point, and this may be the most important in response to Mr. Sulkas, in an 830G rental building, the designation of affordable units is initial. And that what you see on the plans is the initial designation. That can change over time by what's called the next available unit rule. So if someone qualifies for an affordable unit based on their income, and then in a later year they go over that income, we don't make them move out. We say you can stay in your unit and choose to pay a market rent. And the next available unit rule means that the next unit in the building that becomes available, whether it's a market rate or affordable, has to be made an affordable unit. If that unit is on the third or fourth floor, one of those units has to become affordable. So over time, this is what can happen. So you could impose a condition identifying specific units, but that will only last until the first time the next available unit rule comes into play. Now, the next thing is, frankly, economic. In an 830G set-aside development, 30% of the units are affordable, 70% are market rate. The market rate rents are what the landlord depends on in order to offer below market rents for the other units. So designating the most desirable units in the building is not only allowed, it's part of the economic plan of 830G. What you can't do is you can't have crummy units and make those affordable and luxury units and make those market rate. And we're not doing that. So we're complying with 830G. Last thing I'll say is I have to push back on the idea that all the tenants, the tenants on the top floor of the building will enjoy the amenity room and the decks to the exclusion or not in the same way as the other tenants in the building. Have you ever lived in a multifamily building where you live right next to the amenity room? It might be the worst place in the whole building. So the people who live on the first and second floors may be in the ideal location. So I just think it's not correct to say that those who live in a larger unit adjacent to a deck or an amenity room are in a superior location, because that may not be the case. Basically, Mr. Sulkus respectfully has suggested that we have 2 units on the top floor where there's only 4 units. That would be 50% of the units on that floor being affordable. That's not dispersal. That's a different metric. So, Mr. Sulkus and I have agreed to disagree on this, but my position, my request, based on my experience with 830G, is that the plan that we have, the initial plan, is compliant and there's no reason to change it. So that's pretty much, and I know that was a longer answer than you wanted, Commissioner, but those are my responses.
There was not a limitation on length. Thank you for explaining to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the board? Mr.
Attorney Hollister, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Currently at 25 Shell Avenue, there's a structure, am I right? And how many units are in that structure?
9.
Are they all single, one-unit apartments? One-bedroom apartments?
That's my understanding, yes.
Is that a yes or no? Is it one bedroom, or some of them are 2 bedrooms?
Well, they're all one bedroom. I believe they're all 1 bedroom.
All right. So 9 units, and they're all 1 bed. How many parking spaces are there currently at 25 Shell Avenue?
How many apartment spaces?
How many parking spaces are currently
parking.
at Shell Avenue?
18? I'm sorry?
You don't know the answer? What is currently on the property?
I believe it's 18, Commissioner Hirsch, but
All right. So currently, there's 9 units of single, of 1-bedroom apartments, and there's 18 parking spaces, correct?
correct.
So now your client is proposing building 12 two-bedroom apartments and 8 one-bedroom apartments. So how many people would theoretically, how many cars would be there at night?
I don't know how many cars would be there. I think we are at a parking ratio that's about 1.75 per unit, okay. So that's pretty generous.
All right, so you got...
We have two per two-bedroom unit and one for each one-bedroom unit plus handicap spaces.
So hypothetically, there could be 32 people sleeping in this unit in the future with 12 two-bedrooms and 8 one-bedrooms.
I don't know the answer to that.
It's a hypothetical.
Yes.
And you're going to have 36 parking spaces in this new facility. Is that accurate?
Correct.
All right, so right now the ratio is 2 parking spaces per person, but now it's going to be 1-to-1.
2 parking spaces. The ratio is, we have 36 spaces for 20 units. That's,
but 20 units doesn't mean 20 people. 20 units could be 32 people, correct?
you certainly would probably have more than one unit one person per unit in the two-bedroom, but the total number of people in the building, 30 is a reasonable estimate, but I don't know.
Okay, assuming full occupancy, there could be 32 people living in this structure in 18 months with only 36 parking spaces. Is that accurate?
You're asking me to predict. Is it an accurate prediction? It's a good ballpark estimate, yes.
Okay. Does your client believe that a structure that has 32 potential tenants with 36 parking spaces is a sufficient number of parking spaces?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Mortimer?
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. These are apartments, not condominiums?
That's correct.
Okay, and so no HOA fees in addition to the rent?
No.
Okay, and apparently, despite being on the beach, you're not in a flood zone. Is that correct?
We're not what?
A flood zone? Like you didn't have to raise this building?
Mr. Chair, they're not in a flood zone. The building is not in a flood zone.
It's not in a flood zone, but the building is actually raised. The parking garage places the habitation above, well above the flood zone.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted a clarification on that. One other thing, I'm not too familiar with the drainage system. I'm wondering if we could get a little more explanation on that.
What are you looking for specifically?
Just a general explanation. You're taking the rainwater from the gutters and the leaders into a tank, a holding tank. Is it being treated there before it's released into the sewer system, or?
Yes, the runoff from the roofs are going to be collected by the gutter system. The gutter system will be transferred to the leader system. The leader system will tie into an underground pipe system, which is a roof drain system. That roof drain piping will connect to the hydrodynamic separator, which is identified as WQS1 on the plans. That is it's a hydrodynamic separator, so what it does is it works on swirl concentrator. The inflow comes in, it separates out the particulate matter and the floatables, and then the clean water is discharged from the hydrodynamic separator into yard drain, into the yard drain, and then from the yard drain it will be dispersed into the galleries. If a situation arises for very heavy rainfall events, and if the capacity of the galleries is exceeded, then the flow will be directed from the yard drain to the outfall on the riprap pad on the downhill side of the retaining wall.
I see. And in your system, you're just taking the particulate matter, separating it, and then the water goes on. There's no treatment going on site with chemicals or anything?
No. The treatment is basically in the hydrodynamic separator, and that will require periodic maintenance.
Okay.
Cleaning out of the sediments and pumping of the floatables.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Just generally, I heard Attorney Hollister speak and indicate that he thought there was going to be some sort of a public comment, but I believe under this particular situation, we would not normally have public comment. I'm leaning toward the fact that we've not had an 830G in a long period of time. I don't recall ever having one on the water that we may consider allowing public comment. I'm just giving that observation.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? One thing I would just share is that you talked about the next available unit. So it seems to me if the initial plan is, if we approve with David's language to include 2 of the top floor units as affordable, then it's really not a harm, because in any given month or year with an available unit they could become affordable anyway. So I don't see it as much of a harm to your point, that it could change. So I think that when I came across the application, my first question also was, does this comply with 830G in that comparability? So I would be in favor of a motion that approves. I mean, it's a beautiful building, and it's a great opportunity for affordable housing right on the beach, and it's pretty special. So that's a nice thing, and I think it's a beautiful building. But I think the language that the city planner has put forth would be what I'd like to hear in the motion.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if it'll make things easier, if you wanted to split the difference between Mr. Sulkus and what I advocated, we would accept 1 unit on the top floor as an initial designation, just trying to be accommodating. Thank you.
Well, that's a thought. I think your point that the percentage of units on the 2 lower floors, I'll leave that to whoever makes the motion, but it's a thought to consider. Mr. Hirsch.
Yeah, Chairman Quish, one issue that I don't think we discussed is the traffic in this area. This is a very tight area, and you're about to add at least 30 tenants to this area in a very tight area, and I was not moved by the presentation of the traffic engineer who's trying to tell us that. Can I finish, please?
I would really ask you not to do that. This is not the forum for that.
That's very inappropriate.
I do appreciate it, though, that's your feelings, but thank you for not clapping anymore.
But again, the issue I had with the traffic engineer is how you're going to add an additional 21 tenants but not have a major impact on traffic patterns in a very narrow, tight area. I didn't agree with the math, and I just have a problem with that.
Well, we have in the past required the applicant to pay for either third-party review or another traffic expert to weigh in. Our experience is that it's kind of like a formula, and it doesn't seem to change much, but I'm not sure that it's not appropriate. David, would you refresh us? As Mr. Sadie said, we have not had one for 4 or 5 years, and we have in the past used that caveat that the alders have provided us.
Which makes, that's true, everything you just said is true, which makes a difference in a regular application to the Planning and Zoning Board. The history of the City of Milford and bringing up that particular issue on prior 830Gs, each and every time we have gone to court and used that as a reason for denial, our decisions are overturned because the courts have specifically said to us, you can't take traffic issues are not something that you can deny an 830G for. It's not a health, safety, or welfare issue, traffic generation. So,
well, the potential for a health problem if it is not a sufficient sight lines with cars parked there, or I don't know. I mean,
I understand.
It could be a second look, maybe worth it.
That's obviously that's up to you, keeping in mind the police department has reviewed this and approved it, and they look at sightlines. The fire department has looked at this, and they're interested in access to the site. They've approved it. And as you said, yeah, we could have the applicant pay for a third-party review, and we have never had a third-party review that ultimately didn't agree with the traffic study that was already put into the board.
Okay, understood. Any questions, further questions or comments from the board? If anyone wants to make a motion to request a third-party review, we could hear that. If not, then, and then we would have to vote up or down on that, and then if not, then, Mr. Morgan. Bob.
Society, were you going to say something? Okay. I'll make the motion, including the traffic study.
Excuse me, please, this is not a public hearing, and the public has no right to speak, and even if it was, we wouldn't be just shouting out from our seats. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, just reiterate, this is not a public hearing, and the public is not invited to speak. Thank you. And it's also not a conversation. I'm sorry if you're disappointed with that, but this is not a public hearing. The public has not been invited to speak. So that is where we stand.
Mr. Chair, there may be some confusion by the public. In the letter that the applicant, as a courtesy, sent out to the neighbors, in that letter, the applicant indicated that it was a public hearing, which was inaccurate. So that's an unfortunate occurrence for the public.
Understood. Well, thank you for that clarification. It is in our purview to hear public comment, even if it's not a public hearing. And if the board doesn't have objection, I would allow, not 3 passes for each individual, but I would allow that if we have no objection from the board.
No objection.
Okay, without objection, if you come up to the podium, please say your name and address for the record. Keep your comments to about 3 minutes, and if you agree with the person or someone who had just spoke, please just say that you agree so that we don't carry this on too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. My name is Irving Stern. I live at 57 Shell Avenue. And in terms of the traffic is a safety issue. And while it was stated earlier that the road is about 25 feet long, that there are great sight lines over on Seaside Avenue, the other end of the street is Surf Avenue. And the sidewalk does not go all the way down there. And the road is only 17 feet 4 inches wide between houses 81 and 82 Shell Avenue. There are no sidewalks. We have walkers, people with strollers, cyclists, runners, and there's no sidewalk down at that end. So while there's great sight lines and sidewalks over on the end where the unit is, at the other end of the street, it's very narrow, and there are no sidewalks, and there's no parking whatsoever allowed. And so cars don't only come in this side, they're going to come from both sides. And so with additional 20 units, and we heard 71 trips, and I didn't quite follow all the 4 trips in the morning, whatnot, that seemed awfully low to me. But with that additional traffic that's going to come from both sides, not just the one side, it's a pinch point down near the Surf Avenue side, only 17 feet 4 inches wide with no sidewalks. And so I think it's a very strong safety issue that this increased number of units is going to lead to more traffic, not just in and out of the unit, but coming down the street, that makes it much less safe for those of us who walk, ride, and otherwise traverse the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for letting us speak. My name is Catherine Odie, and I live at 77 Shell Avenue, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my mother, Sarah Odie. And we are in one of those houses. We are at 77, which is on the lower end. Our house exits directly. Who was discussing the traffic report that he said that he commissioned. He spoke of the street being, I think, 26 feet wide or 25 feet wide. It is certainly not that wide. It is very narrow. 2 cars cannot get by together. They have to discuss it with each other of who is going to get by. In the summer, we have cyclists, we have tourists, we have walkers. Our house house, you have to go down a staircase when we go to take the garbage out, and we're going directly onto the street. My mom is in her 80s, and I don't know when she's going onto the street if there's going to be a car that's going to come whipping by. When he spoke about the speed limit, when you don't have a stated speed limit, I believe it is 25, we have people going over that. So I'm not sure what he meant in saying that it could go as high as 35. It is not that kind of street. It is a pedestrian street, and to put much more traffic on that street is nonsensical. And I just would like to add what this gentleman spoke about, the concern about the water. We have flooding issues down at our end, and I don't think it would be a good idea to have any type of water, whether it would be the water that they have treated or just more flood water coming from more people living up at that end of the street, flooding down to our end. We've had a history of flooding on the street where we would be able to swim in the street. It's so full of water. And I'd like to just wrap up by saying we hold the street quite dear. My great-grandfather built 61 Shell Avenue 100 years ago. We've owned our house for 50 years. And we wouldn't be fighting for the peace and quiet of this street and to not have to be walking out into traffic into an unsafe street if we didn't feel strongly about it. We would just like these experts to give us real information. We don't think they're being honest with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie McGinley, 106 Shell Avenue. I've been living in the house since 1992. When I moved here, there has been, before I even moved in, one fatality at the corner of Seaside and East Broadway. That was Jimmy Amon's brother. They put lights, blinking lights, and stop signs. No one stops at that stop sign. Nobody. I have video. Just today, I videotaped it. I will prove no one stops. The next accident was Bob Joy, Sr., the jewel of Milford. My ex-husband took him out of the car so his breathing could. Every time I walk down the street, I have to dodge cars coming in because they're flying around that corner. I'll show you the video. I'll send it to you, whoever wants it. You can see the video. No one stopped. The blinking signs don't stop. Safety is enormous on this street. To build parking spots like this is ridiculous. And anybody who even thinks of that and thinks they can get away with that...
Please address the board, ma'am. Please just address the board.
It's just not right. It's just not fair. They don't look at safety. Do we need one more fatality? Just one more? Because 3 is the magic number when we finally do something about it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Thomas. I live at 74 Shell, at the bottom of Shell Avenue, and the street is very narrow where I live, and it is definitely hazardous. There's a lot of cyclists, people who walk. There are no sidewalks. The street is very narrow. When 2 cars go by, people actually, there has been accidents there too. In fact, my car had gotten hit by another car. In fact, last summer, a cyclist did get hit by someone else as well that I witnessed, and also another neighbor. So there is more danger in that area, and also the corner on Surf. There's no stop sign there, like Debbie just mentioned, and people do whip around that corner quite rapidly, and I see people getting hit all the time. People go over my driveway constantly, and I have a camera out there. Happens dozens and dozens of times a day because people cannot get by. So adding more traffic is just going to cause more problems. And it really is a safety issue, adding this many more units. I'm not opposed to the affordable housing or this, it's just the amount is what the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us speak. My name is Nancy Herman. I am co-owner of 33 Shell Avenue with my cousin Ann Greenstone Blake. We are immediately adjacent to the property in question. And I don't want to repeat what everybody has said, but this is a narrow street. It's already highly used by people who like to come down and run down the street, walk down the street, jog down the street, bicycle down the street. They get to see the water on one side. You would think it was going to be a quiet street. It is really not. It's just very narrow. And we are concerned about just the number, the additional number. We're not opposed to a change next door. We're not opposed to affordable housing, but 20 units, I don't know, even considering the number of parking lots, the parking spaces there, we're going to have a minimum of 40 more cars, and there could be more. And they're going to have to park on the streets as well, which narrows the street even further. So we're very concerned about the safety on the street, the parking, the traffic. Having an emergency vehicle have to come up that street is a terrifying thought.
I'm Ann Greenstone Blake, and I live at 5 River Edge, but I own the property at 33 Shell, which is directly adjacent to 25 Shell. And we've discussed this, and again, thank you for letting us speak, but we are really concerned with safety, and I invite anybody who wants to come down in the summertime or anywhere from May till December and see what the traffic is like, circling and looking for places to park and circling. With no regard to pedestrians, of what there are many, many kids and bikes and people, and their lives are endangered by this huge addition to the number of cars that this proposed project would generate. So thank you for
Thank you.
us.
Thank you both.
Hello, thank you for hearing us speak. I'm representing 49 Shell Avenue. My family bought the house 55 years ago. I'm extremely concerned about safety. When I was a kid, we saw a dog get hit by a car, 10 of us, traumatized.
Excuse me, ma'am, if you would just state your name for the record. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane Bradzel, Colombo Fellini is the house on 49 Shell Avenue. I'm concerned about not only dogs getting hit or children getting hit, but there's also 2 public alleyways going to the beach on our street. So there are many cars that come in the summer looking for a place to go to the beach. They don't go to the public beach at Silver Sands. They try to come to our street because they have public access. They are allowed to sit on the beach. Every year it's an issue. There's no parking. We can't park. People are trying to park. Putting an extra 40 possible cars on our street, and that's only for the people who live there, never mind visitors. One of the questions I'd like to know is how many houses are on our street and how many cars are already on our street, and how that is going to impact adding another at least 40 cars to our street. I don't think the street can handle it, and I think the kids, the families, the people walking, the people that are driving into the public access alleyways are going to be in danger, and there's nowhere to park as it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Debbie Fuchs. I'm at 17 Shell Ave, which is directly adjacent to the proposed building. I'm speaking on behalf of my husband and I. He had to be in Pennsylvania on some business, so unfortunately he couldn't attend. But while we welcome Ms. Stryker to Shell Avenue, we all share the concern for the safety of our neighbors in the neighborhood. We have kids that are playing in the street, there's basketball there, and I totally reiterate everything that my neighbors have said about the parking. During the summer, there are hundreds of people on the beach. Like in front of our house, it's just wall-to-wall people, and there's never a place to park. We're just concerned about the size and the magnitude of her project. We think that 20 units are going to put at least 40 cars. I don't see 32. I see much more than 32, considering more than one person is going to be in each unit. sorry, and plus visitors. I mean, I don't know where all these cars are going to park. And also, there is no speed limit on the street. It's posted, but people just speed right by. We've had our car hit a few times. People are constantly turning around in the parking lot trying to find another place to park, trying to get down the street. If another car is coming and you happen to be going past a parked car, you just can't. Somebody has to stop and let you know, in order to get by. So I just feel that scaling back her number of units would be the safest thing for our street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dan Welby. I live on 28 Shell Ave, which is directly across the street from the driveway, proposed driveway. I'm not going to talk about anything that everyone hasn't been talking about. It's all about the safety concerns and the traffic survey they did. That's great. And as everyone discussed here, it's a mathematical equation. There's things that get put into it. What it didn't account for, which everyone behind me is talking about, is the people that are not in cars. So I have a vantage point when I sit and I'm perched right up, my desk is perched right up looking right at their driveway. So knowing I was coming here today, I did a count. 45 people either biked, walked their dog, or, was exercising on our street just today. 45 people. And that is in between meetings, of course. I'm doing the math, I'm making notches. That didn't account. That traffic survey does not account for the volume of people that are walking up and down our street or, using some kind of recreational vehicle, bikes or whatever it might be. So now adding double the traffic, okay, and barely be able to drive down that street on a summer day where the cars are parked, two cars going in opposite directions, you're squeaking by. I mean, you're going to have to, there's no question, the street has to be widened. There's no question about it. It would have to be widened. You would have to put a crosswalk up too. Because I'm telling you, someone will be hit. Because when I'm watching that, cars coming out every day and the walkers are coming, I've seen multiple times where I'm like, this is it, this person's going to get hit. Okay? So, and by the way, there's been multiple accidents in our street. One where a drunk driver swiped 3 cars and crashed into a car that actually rented there and parked the opposite way where they shouldn't have been and totaled it right in front of my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. So for some reason that was missed too. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Joel Hagan. I live at 40 Shell Avenue. Same concerns, traffic. We talked a lot about the street itself, but the reality of the street is that not only is there traffic on the side that allows parking, on a even normal day, people park up to and past the stop sign. I've almost been T-boned at the end of our street going on to Seaside. I've almost been T-boned by somebody running a red light on East Broadway and Seaside. It's not a safe intersection there at all. People aren't expecting people to turn left out of our road. It's also, speaking to the runners and bikers, this is a nationally marked East Coast Greenway that is nationally advertised, and there are regular commuters or people coming from the top of Maine all the way to Florida on our road. It's I think a pretty important thing for the city. There's a lot of bikers, a lot of walkers, a lot of dog walkers. My kids, every single day, my son rides his bike to school. His friends come over, my daughter's friends come over. We're very bike focused in our house. So there's the reality of, there's the numbers that we're told and the things that we're told about our street, and then the reality. The reality of, even if 71 extra trips, that's just pulled out of air. We can't guarantee that. We can't guarantee that everyone's going to have 1.75 cars. Are we going to have, 0.75 parking lot or spots for tiny cars? But in reality, we can't say that somebody isn't going to have a third car that they're going to park on the street. We already don't have street parking. We already don't have line of sight because when people are parking on that side, all of the business vehicles go on the other side. They park illegally, and we have no line of sight most of the days out of our driveway because we've got landscaping vehicles, we've got big UPS trucks. I have personally witnessed UPS trucks, other landscapers, and a fire truck have to wait for somebody to come move a vehicle off of the wrong side of the road. That's a safety issue. We have older people on our street. And when we're impeding access already with the numbers we have, adding more is not feasible, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, sirs and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dan Howarth. I live at 18 Shell Avenue, which is to the left of the building across the street. I'm next to Dan's house on 25 Shell. I agree with what everybody has said, but I just want to make a few comments. It was mentioned before that there's approximately 18 parking spaces in a parking lot. If you can get 10 cars in there, you're lucky, because they're faced one way and they're faced the other way. They got to back up. There is a space on the other side of the building, but in there is a dumpster, some shacks and everything, and some people park in there, and they actually park on the grass. All right? What I'm concerned about is one other thing, is on the one side of the street where you can park, people face this way, and they park that way. And these are all people that are transient or visitors. So I think it's a real safety problem and a traffic problem. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Patrick Callahan, 10 Seaside Avenue. My property is 2 properties away from the proposed property. I want to reiterate what everyone else has said here. Safety is the driving factor. Nobody's standing in the way of advancement and improving the property, improving the neighborhood. What we want to do is do it in the right way. The numbers simply don't work out. This gentleman over here was asking earlier about the number of people and the number of cars that you're going to be adding to this property. They currently have about, I would say, 16 to 18 spots. You'd be lucky if you can get 11 on there. That parking lot currently floods every time it rains, okay? So water and drainage is already an issue. You're going to take a building and you're going to more than double the size of that building. Therefore, taking away that land that the water would now be absorbed into is now going to have a building on it, and you're going to put water that goes into tanks on a property that's currently very poorly maintained as it is. And those tanks are going to have to be maintained constantly to make sure that they drain out correctly. And also on the traffic side of it, when you go to the lower part of Seaside Avenue, only 1 car can pass at a time. So often you have 2 cars waiting on each end for 1 car to pass while you're dealing with people in strollers, people walking dogs, people on bikes, people running, and during the summer, this is a very popular area. You have runners, you've got biking clubs, you've got running clubs that are going through that neighborhood, sometimes 30 and 40 people at a time. The current road, regardless of adding this new facility, the current road is just not safe. And you're going to add all these new units and all these new people and all these new cars. Why? Because it drives up our grand list, it makes more money for the Milford. I think you should take into consideration the safety of the people in the neighborhood and the safety of everyone that comes to visit this area before you take into consideration going from 9 units to 22 units, from 9 people that sleep there to 36 people who sleep there, to adding 71 new cars every day riding up and down a road that's already unsafe, okay? It's currently unsafe and it should be improved. But to add this new building, like I said, no one's standing in the way of this new facility. I think it needs to be improved. Honestly, it falls into the category of a shithole, as it is right now, okay? This place needs to be improved. I'm all for it, but let's do it in the right way, okay? Let's not go from 9 to 20. And let's add, if you want to add 9 or 10 new units, great. Do a nice job with it, but take good care of it. The way in which it's poorly drained right now, who's going to maintain those tanks? Who's going to maintain those tanks? So I won't take any more of my time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Wendy Gleason, and I live on 54th. Wendy Gleason, I live on 54 Shell Avenue. It's a lovely structure. The last one was too, but I don't know how you make the decision. I've never been here before, but I would ask that you would try and drive down the street yourself and look at it so you can see exactly what we're talking about. It is such a narrow street, and when I go out this little space, my office also looks out over the street, and there are so many pedestrians. They love walking around there. Why shouldn't they? But with this many new cars that are potentially going to be coming down, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's nice to have something there, definitely needs an improvement, but there's going to be too much traffic. It's going to be too dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Dion. I actually live on 993 East Broadway, so I'm directly behind Dan Welby. I have views of the building from my house. The big thing that the safety thing we already talked about, but the big thing is the sanitation. We're talking a lot about the space being like all on top of this property. There's just parking lot in this building. I don't see where there's going to be a dumpster. I don't see where there's actually going to be a spot for a place where sanitation can happen at this location. So also the other thing that's concerning is if we have 20 units here, we're going to be having a lot of HVAC systems. And all those HVAC systems also need to go somewhere. And there doesn't look like there's any space for those systems to actually be a suitable space away from other people's properties to cause noise pollution as well. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kenna Hagan from 40 Shell Avenue. There was discussion tonight about 830G and recognizing that under the law you cannot deny without just cause, but you do have the right to deny if there is significant health or safety concerns. The comment that traffic issues are not a relevant safety concern, I would challenge based on the contrary testimony that you've heard tonight. And courts and judges are going to review this to say that we've never been, every time that we've issued a denial based on traffic concerns, we've been denied. But those are fact-based scenarios that a judge is going to look at. And so long as you have demonstrated just cause for the denial based on a legitimate safety or health concern, will be considered. And even past precedent doesn't always dictate how future outcomes will be. So my request tonight is that you take time and do an additional traffic study to evaluate the testimony that you've heard tonight, to rebut or challenge the prior expert that gave testimony, because I think there's a lot of holes in the evidence that was used to develop that study, and to have further inform your decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been wanting to come up, but then this will be the second to last person. We've heard the same thing over and over, and we've been patient, but I'm glad to hear everybody, but we have to also put it to bed at one point. So go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm attorney Marjorie Shansky, and I represent the Fuchs at 17 Shell Avenue. Debbie spoke just a few speakers ago. I have 3 comments. One has to do with the comment by counsel that he assumes that Mr. Goucher at Deep will be responding saying that the effort to meet whatever was outstanding with Deep had been satisfied by non-response. I say, let's hear from Deep. It's a coastal site plan. It's an appropriate thing to do. My second concern, and I associate myself with the town planner and with the chair, in terms of the units on the third floor. The proposal reads like a high rent district and a low rent district. When council says that comparability doesn't mean that there has to be equal distribution on each floor, but it happens to be that the third floor has units that are not like units on the second and first floor. Consequently, there is no representation there for affordability, and notwithstanding the offer to make one of them affordable, in exchange for the density bonus that is intrinsic in an 830G in the statute, in exchange for creating this opportunity, it would seem to me that that dictates that 2 units on the third floor be affordable. Things may happen down the line for the first available unit that alters the chemistry, and that will be organic. But to start out with something less than comparable units throughout the building does not seem fair given the density bonus. And then finally, the structure is 10.2 feet from the property line, and it's a long structure. And I note that by the addition of a hydrant and the addition of a standpipe and the sprinklering of the building, that there's valid concern on behalf of the fire marshal for fire safety. But 10.2 feet of this long building, where obviously fire suppression from that 10 feet is probably not possible because you can't post a ladder there and do anything meaningful, imperils the Fuchs home in its orientation, and that's able to be seen on the site plan. So for those reasons, and listening to the legitimate concerns of many Shell Avenue residents, it's not traffic, it's safety, and the safety concern has been made manifest. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Toby Meshberg. I live at 75 Shell Avenue for a long time, 40-something years. I agree with everything that's been said here. And I just want to say thank you all for listening to us and hearing us out. A major part of the mission of this board is to ensure the safety and welfare of the community by enhancing and protecting the quality of life. You all do that by ensuring responsible growth and development and by preserving the unique character of areas and natural environs. We have to trust you to uphold that mission. Thanks for hearing us all.
Thank you.
And come visit.
And thank you all for your thoughts and comments, and I'm sure we all have listened. So it seems that there is substantial concern in the neighborhood, and there is some question as to the number of accidents that have been looked at, and maybe they just looked at a different time period, but I think it's appropriate that we have an outside consultant come in and look at traffic, but also safety, and look at traffic, potential parking, potential additional street parking, and how that would affect safety, and that would be at the expense of the applicant. And without objection, I'd ask that we have that done. We do have the right. The alderman gave that to us, and that we continue this till our next meeting, or whenever the traffic safety/traffic analysis is done. And I work with you on the language to put out an RFP to consultancy.
Okay, it's actually pretty easy because we have a list of consultants that we would just ask, and we just have to basically tell them what we're looking for.
Okay. Without objection, Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Mr. Quish. I'm not commenting about the traffic study, but I think that Attorney Hollister, because we did make it more of a public hearing, should be allowed at least to speak now before we continue the matter. He wishes to.
That's fine.
Thank you. Tim Hollister for the record. Just a couple things. Attorney Chansky mentioned the fire marshal. The fire marshal reviewed this plan and approved it, had no concerns about fire safety. Mr. Goucher reviewed the plan. He had no concerns. He had no objections. He was in an advisory role. We sent him the revised plans. No basis to believe he has any concerns. Regarding the neighborhood traffic, let me just point out two things. 9 units exist on the property now. We're moving to 20. That is a very small change. The trip generation, what the engineers call the difference or the delta, is single digits. And, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and one of the patterns of neighbors, which I understand, is they basically say, well, the traffic conditions are existing are unsafe for us. Are safe for us, but they'd be unsafe for anyone else. And you know, there's a disconnect there. But I would just point out, you have the traffic engineering is a professional discipline requiring expertise. You have only before you the opinion of a licensed professional traffic engineer who gave unequivocal testimony that there would be no impact here. You know, obviously, if you order us to get a peer review study, we're going to do what you tell us, but I would just suggest that it's not really necessary for the reasons that Mr. Sulkus articulated earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. So without objection, this will go to the next available meeting after a report has been given.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do object to this independent traffic study. I don't think it's necessary.
You do not think it's necessary?
I don't think so.
Let's have a motion and a vote then.
Chairman, I'll move to table till the next meeting.
What about the traffic study?
And do the traffic study, have them do the traffic study.
Right, so we need Eton does not think we should do that, so we need a motion and a vote on the traffic study.
Yeah, I'm moving it. I'm moving
okay.
The traffic study and moving it to the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? John?
Let's just be clear on what we're doing. You're looking to move it to the next. Okay.
But also to enable them or mandate that they do the safety study. Okay. If you would call the roll, Mel.
Ms. Austin. With the motion. Mr. Castagnoli.
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch.
Against the motion.
Mr. Cater.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi.
With the motion.
And Chairman Hirsch.
I'm also with the motion. Motion passes. All right, thank you all for your attention and your consideration. If you would, if you leave quietly, we do have other business that needs attention. I would appreciate it if those that are not involved in the next application, if they leave quietly. Thank you. Give us just one more minute for it to calm down a little bit.
I've been guilty of that on occasion myself.
It looks like we have relative calm. Our next order of business is a public hearing closed by November 8th, 2023, vote by January 11th, 2024, I think that should read. Proposed regulation change number 23-7, petition of John Nuff, Esquire, for changes to Article 3, Section 3.9, Shopping Center Design District, Article 5, Section 5.1, Parking and Loading Regulations, and Article 11, Section 11.2, Other Terms. Applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office down the street at 147 Broad Street, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Connecticut Post Limited Partnership. They are the owner, of course, of the Connecticut Post Mall, located at 1201 Boston Post Road. It is in a shopping center design district, and Connecticut Post is a centennial entity that owns 36 other centers across the country, many of which Centennial is actively reimagining as envisioned here. With me this evening are Whitney Livingston, who's the president of Centennial, and Michael Platt, who's the vice president of mixed-use development. You'll be hearing from each of them in a few moments. This is an application to amend the Milford zoning regulations, in particular the shopping center design district regulations, along with some related provisions regarding parking. This is only a regulation amendment. It is not a special permit application. We'll be showing you some concept plans in a few minutes, but this regulation simply paves the way for us to submit a full special permit and site plan application subsequent to this application. This application proposes modest, but nonetheless vital changes to create the opportunity for Centennial to make an investment of tens of millions of dollars that would revitalize the mall and make it relevant again by offering the type of shopping, dining, and entertainment experiences that today's consumers seek out. And that word experience is important because it's the one thing that online retailers cannot deliver. And that's really the key. To take a mall that's built for consumers in the 70s and 80s, and which hit its prime probably 20 or 30 years ago, and make it a real destination again. A place that people actually seek out, want to explore, where they want to live, and be excited about again. And in doing so, maintain the mall's status as Milford's biggest taxpayer, maintain the mall's thousands of jobs, and provide critical housing alternatives. The shopping center design regulations create a very large envelope in terms of uses and bulk requirements, but there are certain components of the current SCD regs that simply need to be updated. We'll review those in more detail in a few minutes, but in summary, the changes propose the following. We propose to modify the regulations that govern the design of multifamily buildings to permit a far more attractive and contemporary design than what is currently permitted, and in a format that is, quote, sensitive to the context of the area. That's a quote from your proposed COD. We propose to permit multifamily buildings in 3 phases of 250 units per phase, the first of which requires an engaging, mixed-use, pedestrian environment with first-floor retail and restaurants, outdoor dining with direct proximity to a plaza and to the mall. We propose that 10% of those units will be deed restricted as affordable. Our last application, we proposed none. In our discussions with you, we raised that to 5%. And rather than get involved in a negotiation with you, we wanted to go the extra mile and propose the full 10%, which has become a standard across the states. We propose to create a plaza that will host a variety of outdoor events, whether a farmer's market, arts and music, and children's activities. We propose to add other commercial uses, such as medical office, personal services, schools of every type, and outdoor entertainment. We propose regulations that reflect broader city and societal goals of sustainability, affordable housing, and acknowledging historical context. We propose doing that in a format that applies only to parcels in the shopping center design district that exceed 50 acres. There are only 3 parcels in the shopping center design district, and the mall is the only one that exceeds 50 acres. So there's no reason for any concern as to what may occur on the other properties. As we explained in our narrative, the proposed changes are entirely consistent with the city's existing POCD, your draft 2023 POCD, the 2022 Affordable Housing Plan, and the Comprehensive Plan. Since the submission of our application, the city has received the Community Economic Recovery Strategy Report that was unveiled last week. Each of these plans, each of these reports, commissioned by the city with the intent of promoting the best interests of the city, either support or specifically recommend precisely what we are proposing this evening. In sum, the proposed amendments will foster the critical partnership between Centennial and the city to accomplish the shared goals of maintaining and increasing jobs, enhancing property values and the tax base, providing housing alternatives, including affordable housing, sustainability, and creating an exciting destination for people throughout the region. And with that, I'd like to introduce Whitney Livingston, who's the president of Centennial.
Thank you.
Good evening. As John mentioned, my name is Whitney Livingston, and on behalf of Centennial, thank you for the opportunity to present this proposed regulation change. Next slide, please. One more, please. One more. Thank you. John was behind. As John mentioned, one more, please, thank you. As John mentioned, Centennial is an owner, operator, and developer of retail and mixed-use projects nationally. We have 24 million square feet across our portfolio in 15 states, and of that 24 million square feet, about 65% of the portfolio are enclosed malls. We are a 26-year-old company that prides itself in being a long-term holder of the assets that we acquire, as well as experts in retail-centric real estate projects nationally. We acquired Connecticut Post Mall in 2015, and over the last 8 years have been solely focused on creating a retail-relevant, dominant destination here in Milford, and that is what we are also here to do today. Next slide. We know that sustainability is important to you, and it is important to us as well, and that is why it is specifically mentioned in our regulation amendment. Centennial has a proprietary C-Centennial sustainability program that is focused on energy efficiency, which includes the use of solar panels and power, a robust recycling program, EV charging stations, and initiatives specifically focused on reducing our carbon footprint. We want to ensure that our properties are a catalyst for environmental, social, and economic vitality for the communities that we serve for today, as well as future generations. Next slide, please. We have been specifically asked why this regulation is needed, and I wanted to take a moment to share some information about what we're seeing in the dramatic changes of the mall industry nationally over the last decade. Malls were generally built following a very specific formula. They were developed on large parcels of land, anchored by 3 to 5 department stores, and all connected under one roof of small shop stores that generally offered apparel and accessories. In that format, a mall could be upwards of 1.5 million square feet, which is comparable to Connecticut Post Mall at 1.4 million square feet today. Over the last 10 years, our industry has experienced the rise of e-commerce, the decline of the department store, and small shop tenant bankruptcies. These trends have significantly contributed to increased vacancy and a decline in mall sales. At the same time, consumers today are looking at more than just apparel shopping. They want experience, which means we as mall owners must deliver entertainment, better food and beverage, health, wellness, beauty, lifestyle service, all alongside apparel and accessories in a very different environment. We must offer a fun, walkable, integrated, indoor and outdoor experience that is amenitized with art, music, entertainment, and vibrancy. Unfortunately, malls built for yesteryear are simply too big and constrained by their fortress-style infrastructure to deliver on the needs and wants of consumers. And that's why we're here tonight. We would like to take the first step in partnership with you in delivering a project that is relevant to today and tomorrow's consumers so that the mall will not only survive but thrive for the city of Milford. Next slide, please. And that is exactly what we're doing across the country. Very briefly, I'd like to introduce you to Fox Valley Mall in Aurora, Illinois. This is a perfect example, and if we had a bird's eye view of Connecticut Post Mall, it would look very similar to this. This mall had 4 department stores, 1 went vacant, 1.4 million square feet, and we have been reimagining this project over the last several years. Next slide. Now you get to see Fox Valley fully reimagined. Similar to what we're proposing for Connecticut Post Mall, this project was planned in partnership with the City of Aurora in 3 phases over 7 to 10 years. We have successfully delivered phase 1 of the multifamily of this project, and after its immense success, recently broke ground on phase 2. With the addition of an outdoor activated park and now having created a true 18-hour-a-day destination, the mall itself is also rebounding. Over the last year, sales of the retail of the project have increased over $100 a square foot. We have also seen more leasing velocity at the project than we have in the last 5 years because it's now more relevant to tenants and consumers. All of this contributes to the sales and property tax revenue for the City of Aurora, in addition to delivering a vibrant and viable long-term project for the community. So why should Milford care about Fox Valley? Here's why. Fox Valley is where we are in Milford today. In Milford, we are entrusted with one of the largest parcels in your city. We are entrusted as the largest taxpayer in your city. We are entrusted with thousands of jobs in your city. And as discussed, we are entrusted in helping preserve the environmental future of your city. We take all of those responsibilities very seriously everywhere that we do business across the country. And that's why Fox Valley is relevant to Milford. We wanted to give you a concrete example of where we are doing what is best for the community, for the project where we do business, and with the experience and the team and the platform that can do exactly that for Connecticut Post Mall and Milford. Next slide. And lastly, as I'm sure you will agree, a big part of benefiting the communities where we own centers is the taxes that we pay to fund all municipal services. The value of the mall, like all commercial real estate, is directly tied to the rents that tenants pay. Despite our extreme efforts, we have lost 22 national tenants totaling 300,000 square feet at Connecticut Post Mall since 2019. Most recently, Ulta left the mall to go to Orange. As a result, we have paid more than $250,000 less a year in property taxes. Unless we work together, this decline will continue. By redeveloping the mall as we envision and have proposed in this regulation amendment, together we can begin the rebound. We can maintain our position as the city's biggest taxpayer. We can create jobs. We can add millions of dollars of discretionary spending throughout the community, and we can make the mall an exciting destination again. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Michael Platt.
Thank you.
please, David. One more, please. Good evening. Thank you again for your time this evening. My name is Michael Platt. I'm in the development group at Centennial. Very excited to be here tonight. This is a project that is near and dear to us. We've spent a lot of time over the prior weeks and months, and quite frankly years, trying to reimagine this property and make it relevant once again. On this slide you see before you is an existing site plan. Just call your attention to the box on the far right. That is the prior Sears box, currently vacant. And obviously, as you can imagine, and as Whitney kind of introduced in her comments, the anchors are really what kind of drive traffic through that wing of the shopping center. So with a vacant box, obviously that wing of the shopping center struggles, and that has a downward pressure on obviously the overall performance of the shopping center. So what are we proposing? Well, as Whitney mentioned in her slide, the right sizing of the mall is where it all starts. And then the goal then is to redeploy that real estate in a way that is much more relevant to today's consumer. If we can go to the next slide, David. This is our proposal. As Whitney mentioned, as we're showing at Fox Valley, it would come in a series of phases, this being the first phase, and obviously a very critical phase because it really starts to set the tempo for what's to come. This phase, as you see at the core, is a green space and a public plaza, really anchored by the shopping center on the left side of the property with a grand new front door. The retail real estate at the base of the multifamily buildings above, creating a very animated edge to that plaza, and lots of opportunity for socialization, for social gatherings, for outdoor dining, and yes, for events, concerts in the park, movies in the park, art festivals, etc. Are really a great core, a town square, if you will. Layering on that, if we'd move to the next slide, David, would be a successive phase. We would obviously plan to build on the success of the first phase and translate that into the second phase of multifamily, a mixed use, and then ultimately into a third phase on the following slide that would show a fully built-out plan over a period of likely approaching 10 years. Again, that's work as we work through absorption cycles and just through development and construction cycles. Ultimately, you see a very walkable, a very integrated, a very vibrant shopping center. The new redevelopment really is synergistic with the existing shopping center. A brand new front door anchoring the new plaza, and ultimately what we have is a very walkable, very integrated, very vibrant, and a very dominant shopping district. If we flip to the next slide, David, there are a couple of renderings. We kind of came down into that new grand outdoor public space. You see green spaces, places for just rest and relaxation, and then through the course of our platform, we will program that event through numerous events every year. And obviously, you've got the very vibrant edges that really drive the traffic and the energy to that plaza. A great new opportunity for outdoor retail. We have just a little bit of that today facing Post Oak Road. That is the sort of environment that retailers are looking for today. And being able to offer that will allow us to attract some of the best and brightest retailers of this era. And then, not to be forgotten and clearly very focused in this rendering, a grand new front door for the Post, really anchoring that end of the shopping center and driving traffic both into the shopping center and from the shopping center to the plaza, creating that ultimately very integrated and very synergistic redevelopment. The next slide is show the opportunity to add host events. We envision farmers markets here, as you see depicted in this slide. And again, the already mentioned art festivals, movies in the park, etc. The ability to really program this plaza from building face to building face as needed, and really drive this scale of this this plaza larger as needed, and let it flex to handle multiple different events throughout the year. I think that is my last slide, and I turn it back to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. The reason why we want to show you those concept plans is so that you sort of understand what it is that the regulations are driving towards. So with that, I've handed out a copy of our regulation amendment application. I've also, for the record, provided a copy of a PowerPoint. I assume that you've all reviewed the regulation amendment. I won't go through every word, but I do want to give you at least the concepts and to demonstrate to you that everything that we've shown you this evening are in fact embodied in the regulation amendment itself. So as I said, we are proposing what I call modest but very critical changes. And what the regulation does is to create a new section which is 3.9A.1. The shopping center design district regulations are 391. Rather than reorder the entire book, after consultation with David, we decided to make a subset of the shopping center design district and we call it the shopping center design district SCD 50. And that obviously stands for parcels that exceed 50 acres. So very quickly, I'm going to run through, if you want to follow along with the copies that I handed you out. So the purpose of the 39A1 Shopping Center Design District SCD 50 is to apply to parcels consisting of 50 acres or greater, located in the shopping center design district. If there's any conflict between the two, this one prevails. And this is the important part. The intent of this section is to facilitate the revitalization of regional shopping malls, including the development of multifamily dwelling units of 3 phases of no more than 250 units per phase, subject to the requirements herein. The first phase shall include a plaza and multifamily dwelling units within the mixed-use building. Multifamily dwelling units in subsequent phases may be located either exclusively residential buildings or mixed-use buildings. Specifically, once you get to perhaps phase 3, there might be an opportunity to do mixed use again, with the first floor being more sort of service-oriented retail. Well, whereas we envision, these retailers along the plaza being more national retailers. In phase 2 or perhaps phase 3, if there's ground floor retail or service, it may be more locally based, whether it's a salon or that type of facility. We added some uses that we know that the commission and the city is concerned about and wanted us to add. Mixed-use buildings, whether it's multifamily or not. We made the provision that the first phase of mixed use has to be located on the plaza. We also made provision for standalone multifamily, as I said, personal services, daycare center, schools. One of the things we added 39A210 is manufacturing, fabricating, assembly in small format, no greater than 5,000 square feet. We don't want anyone thinking that we want to manufacture, but there was a request or a suggestion about incubator space. Well, we wanted to make provision for that, so if someone had a great idea, whatever that might be, and needed some space in order to facilitate that dream, we would be able to do that. We also proposed some new accessory uses, recreational facilities associated with the multifamily dwelling units, and outdoor entertainment on the plaza, of course. We made some modifications to reflect the market with regard to our bulk requirements. And then if you look at 39A42, that's really the meat of what it is that we're doing. Again, no more than 750 units, no more than 250 units in any one phase. The first phase has to include the plaza. It has to be located adjacent to the mall itself. It has to have service or retail on the first floor. There was a requirement for transparency. We want to create a really wonderful, beautiful plaza area that is fronted by restaurants, outdoor dining, retail to really energize and activate that area. That's all required by the regulations. As I mentioned, we have an affordability requirement of no less than 10% of the units shall be affordable. There are design considerations I just described, sustainability requirements that Whitney had described. The height for residential is a maximum of 85 feet. Right now in the zone, the maximum is 120 feet. Residential is capped at the RMF 16 limit of 35 feet, which frankly doesn't make a lot of sense on a 75-acre site located on Route 1 and adjacent to I-95. There are some other spacing requirements, a floor area ratio of 3.0, and then one suggestion that David had was no parcel containing dwelling units shall include a freestanding drive-through restaurant. So, it's not something that we would contemplate, but that was done out of caution. Then we made some modifications to the parking requirements that are consistent with your other regulations, specifically 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit in the zone. You're allowed to go down to as few as 1 in other zones. And then also we made a change to how the overall mall is parked. I've been up at this podium for many, many years talking about how grossly overparked the mall is, because we need to park for literally every square inch of it, every hallway, every bathroom, every elevator, every escalator, all the vast open common areas we have to park for, and as a result, we have vast areas of open parking. And that's one of the interesting things about the sustainability report. It talks about you have this massive sea of parking in other areas as well, and it just creates the wrong feel. And also hurts your economic development because it limits the amount of building you can create. So we right-size the parking requirements to be realistic. And we also changed the basis for that of not the gross building area, but the gross leasable area. In every other case, you base your parking on what is the actual store, what is the space that store is taking up. The mall was sort of an anomaly in that way, that we were parking for literally everything. So that was the basis for the parking change, and obviously there are environmental benefits to be derived from modifications to the parking requirements as well. So that was very quick. We made it in less than half an hour, which I think was a pretty good effort. We obviously were happy to answer any questions. We've been before you on a number of occasions. We made some important changes that we think the city is desirous of. I think what's important is that in the intervening years, despite Centennial's robust and diligent efforts, we're back before you. We desperately want to partner closely with the city. We want to work hand in hand to redevelop the site. We want to work hand in hand to maintain the mall's position as the city's biggest taxpayer. We want to help fulfill the vision that your own reports and your own plans are recommending to the city and frankly to us. So we're happy to answer any questions. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. David, would you like to give your overview before we go to the board for questions and comments?
I can. Just looking, do you want me to read all three?
No, just if you have something you feel is important to point out. I'm sure we all read it all, but I'm just...
Yeah, I think it's important to reiterate that staff and the city support the proposed changes for the following reasons. Housing is currently allowed as a use in the SCD, but to the RMF 16 standard, but not to the proposed building form or density, which the SCD 50 would allow. This regulation amendment would allow multifamily mixed-use buildings subject to height, area, and density limitations proposed by the applicant. The proposed changes are consistent with the current 2012 Plan of Conservation Development, as well as our draft 2032 Plan of Conservation and Development, which hopefully we will adopt later this month. The proposed regulation is consistent with the goals and objectives of the Milford Affordable Housing Plan adopted in 2022, and the proposed changes allow for flexibility in pursuing the highest and best uses for the property, being responsive to market opportunities. And DPLU believes that the proposal for reduced parking amounts of 1.25 spaces per unit for bedroom counts and new gross leasable area calculation method is reasonable and appropriate for the district.
Great, thank you. Are there questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Attorney Knuff. You brought up the fact that I think you said you've been here before, and I think some of us might have a memory, but would you agree that we should have the materials, which would include the minutes, actions taken, and paperwork that you used over the course, I believe it was 2 prior applications. We should have that as part of the record before we make our ultimate decision in this case.
I mean, candidly, I don't know that is necessary. I think we all have pretty good memories. I think I can summarize the differences, but I think this application stands on its own. And what I think those other applications going on to this one demonstrate is our willingness to continue to working with the city. I mean, I'd be happy to, our first application was to have a multifamily building out where the Sears Tire and Lube Center was. No one really liked that idea. The next application, we integrated it. We were at 0% affordable, and then we went to 5%. This one, We have limited it to just our site, because I know there was concerns about what might happen on the other two shopping center design district properties. We have increased the affordability component to 10%. We have introduced phasing, which we didn't introduce before. So those are the highlights. We are what the evolution of the applications demonstrate is Centennial's desire to continue to work with the city, to partner with it, and so we can come up with a plan that satisfies not only the economic development desires of the city, but also their aesthetic and sustainability concerns as well.
Do you oppose having the minutes, actions taken, and prior plans
No,
as part of our record?
I have no opposition. I'm not going to.
Okay. And the reason that it is a big task, and it resulted in twice you came before us and we did not pass it. There's other things that you want to bring up. I'm not suggesting it's incorrect, but I think that we should have a full record to be able to do so. I think also we have a member of the board that I don't think participated in any of the previous matters.
Okay.
But that's thing. So that being said, I have some questions on the issue of the units, which we call dwelling units, multifamily. Why is it that it is going to be only limited as a max of 250 per phase?
Because what it allows for, and by the way, we could easily set 750 units whenever we desire. We felt that it allows an absorption rate on our behalf, that once they get built and then start getting leased up, that could happen. But it was designed to give the city some comfort that we weren't going to build 750 units and not invest in the rest of the mall. So it gives you the opportunity. So as we progress along, this isn't just about adding multifamily. As Michael showed you the concept plans. Yes, it showed you the multifamily. He showed you the buildings that had first floor retail and restaurant. But also, those concept plans showed other pad sites surrounding the mall. So it allows the city, before it approves the next tranche of 250 units, to say, what else have you been doing for us? Have you been doing other pad sites? Have you been increasing the commercial space? Are you really creating the vitality that you promised that you would? So it's designed to be a brake on us, should the commission and the city want that.
And I appreciate the answer, and I guess as lawyers we can talk about the nuances. 830G as it exists now has a certain number of units to get to a moratorium. And I'm not sure that the language that we have here would indicate that if you go out 10 years from now, that you still would be bound by the requirements of 830, because 830 may not be existing.
Well, keep in mind, we are not proposing anything under 830G. Whether or not the city ever gets another moratorium or not, we are obligating ourselves to continue to offer 10% affordable, regardless of phase, regardless of time, regardless of whether there's a moratorium or not. So that's our pledge. But this is not an 830G application, and it will never be an 830G application.
And I agree fully with that. The point is that the language in my mind, might have to be nuanced. We refer to 830G, it may not be in existence in 6 years, but I think I understand the idea that the concept is affordable housing is being proposed by you on behalf of your client to assist in this project being accepted by the board and approved by the board.
Correct, and candidly, as I said, it is doing so makes it consistent with all of your plans and recommendations and reports. Both of your POCDs, your comprehensive plan, your affordability plan, and the most recent economic sustainability report that Don Poland just issued. So this is a concrete example. We keep talking about partnership, but because it's true. Because this is a concrete example of our desire to partner with the city. We know from those documents that this is something that's important to all of you and to other constituencies within the city. And we want to do our part. We want to do our part in taxes. We want to do our part in sustainability. We want to do our part on this being the most visible site, literally, in the city. And we want to make it beautiful. We want to make it exciting. When is the last time people got excited about going to the mall? That's what we want. I've been doing this a long time. The last time people were excited about going to the mall is when Dick's came. That was I don't know, 2006, 2007. It is, Whitney really expressed it the best way. It's a fortress that was built for the 70s. None of us are doing that anymore. For good or bad, our lives have changed. Read the reports that all your consultants have given you. Our families are different. That's what they need to respond to. The world is changing dramatically. Those of us who have kids in their 30s can see it. And that's who they're trying to respond to. The sustainability report talks about we need more housing for millennials, for young people in their 30s who aren't getting married, who aren't having kids yet. We need housing for people who want to downsize. That's what this is intended for. And we need housing for workforce housing. Policemen, firefighters, teachers, nurses, they can live here in those affordable units and live in a place that's frankly fun and exciting. You can walk outside and get a cup of coffee and do the sorts of things that maybe you might otherwise move to New Haven to do. But no, you can do it here.
Thank you. My last question is, assuming we approve this, how soon would you expect phase 1 to start? 6 months from the approval, 2 years from the approval, if you know?
From the time, should this application be approved to the next application, perhaps spring.
Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any questions?
Chairman.
Yep, Joe?
Yeah, where is the entrance, is there a new entrance to the mall on this map? Is it now on East Town instead of the Post Road?
No. So, David, can you go back to the concept plans? And I'm happy to turn it back to Michael. He's the architect.
Yeah, it's way back. Okay.
So, all right, David, if you can go back to the one just prior to this, David. All right, so this is obviously the existing mall.
Right.
The main entrance is on Boston Post Road.
Correct.
The top of the page. And there are 2 entrances to the mall from East Town Road.
Right.
Okay, so if you can go to the next one, David. Actually, there's currently 3 from East Town Road. So the main entrance is still on Boston Post Road, but there will be other entrances available on East Town Road. And when Michael said, this creates the front door to the mall.
Can you show me on the Post Road where the entrance is?
Yeah.
That's still the main entrance? Okay, that's going to remain the main entrance. Okay. If this is approved, are you going to drop your lawsuit?
Yes. If you're talking about the regulation amendment lawsuit, yes, 100%.
Good evening, Attorney Neff. There's a lot to like here. I think there's an opportunity, however, to get more than 10%. I understand it was 0 and you've gone up to 10% affordable. People that would be working at the Post Mall, this would be a perfect place for them to, for them to live. They may not even own a car, so that takes care of the spaces. I have no problem with the 1.25 spaces per. That's perfect. I would only suggest if we could increase the affordable housing, I think this would be much more attractive. Definitely, this is needed. I'm not being negative here, but just a suggestion.
Understood, and it's not the first time we've heard it. But one of the things that we didn't want to do, it may surprise you that applicants sometimes will say, let's use the subdivision as an example. Gee, I really want to get 20 lots, but I'm going to ask for 25 because the commission is going to make me lose some. So I'm not going to ask for 20 because then I'll go only 15. So I'm going to ask for 25. We didn't do that. We didn't do that. We acted like grown-ups, frankly. We put our best foot forward. We can do 10%, and we literally cannot do more. Look at the changes from the plan as it exists to this. Taking down Sears and all that mall and relocating tenants ain't cheap.
That's all good. That's good stuff. 750
No,
apartments.
I'm not arguing, and I know your question comes from a good place, but the problem is there are certain constraints that, are hemming us in as well.
Certainly, and that's why I phrase it the way I do. It just seems like a good opportunity to increase that particular type of housing. But I'm just leaving it out there.
No, thank you. And I appreciate the sentiment.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? Mr. Hirsch.
Attorney Duff, thank you for your presentation. So we're talking this 10%, and I think Mr. Mortimer would like more, but I think Mr. Mortimer, what Attorney Duff is trying to indicate is they have shown a willingness to work with us, and they listen to us. And I think that mutual trust between the developer and the commission and the town, I think is very important. And I think you've done a great job, Attorney Duff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't mean to be negative. I've been in favor of this project since day one, so just my idea to improve
thank you.
Let's say.
Great. Yep.
If I could, I enjoyed the commercial, by the way. We're not used to getting commercials when people come in and want to present us, but I did enjoy it. We were promised that we would hear why the change is necessary, but I haven't heard that yet.
I'm sorry, Mr. Page, I was having...
Why the regulation change is necessary. That's what we were promised here. We're here. The concept is great. Potential is great. I love that. We approved this regulation change. How can we compel you to do any of this, first of all? But more importantly, why do we need this change of the regulation that's before us tonight?
Okay, here's the most important reason. Residential is currently allowed at the mall, but it references the RMF 16 zone.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at your zoning map, you would be hard-pressed to find RMF 16 zone properties. They are a thing of the past. The RMF 16 regulations permits multifamily as a garden-style apartment, 3-story, maximum of 35 feet high, walk-ups. There's no opportunity for first-floor residential, or first-floor retail. There's no opportunity for first-floor restaurants. There's no plaza. It is an anachronistic anomaly to create multifamily on a 75-acre parcel, cheek to jowl to I-95 and Route 1 with a garden-style apartment. It literally made no sense. And when I talk about these are modest but critical changes, that's what I'm talking about. Multifamily is currently permitted, but in a format that no one wants to live in anymore. People have expectations when they rent an apartment of certain amenities, of what that place is going to be like. It's not a 3-floor walk-up. That was the primary change. But because we wanted to change that, we shouldered a lot of other obligations. And that's what we did in all these regulations. The plaza, the sustainability, proximity to the mall, that the first phase of multifamily has to be located adjacent to the mall and adjacent to the plaza to create that vitality. And what this will do is it will be a signal to the retail and restaurant and beverage and service industries that we all want to come to Milford to say Centennial is making an investment in the mall. As Whitney has said to us, if this project were underway, Ulta never would have left, because it would have demonstrated to them that Centennial is all in on this property. And in fact, they are, but they need a little bit of your help. And that little bit are these modest changes to the regulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are there any medical buildings or office buildings in this new plan? I think you mentioned that in the last time you were before us, that there would be possibly medical buildings or office buildings. I'm not saying it.
No. I mean, certainly we're not foreclosing. In fact, we specifically added it as a use.
Okay.
But I mean, so if you can see that there are some pad buildings located adjacent to East Town Road.
Okay.
I mean, that could be a medical office.
Okay.
I mean, we're certainly not foreclosing it. What we want to do is create the shopping center design district regulations create this very broad envelope. We want to make it even bigger so we can have all the types of uses that the marketplace might ask of us.
I just wanted to know if you were still going to do that from your last presentation, if you were going to continue.
If we have the opportunity, we would love to.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Attorney Nuff, if this project goes forward as you're planning, there's going to be construction in this area for up to 10 years. Is that a fair assessment?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay. And people will be able to shop in their normal course even in the midst of all this construction going on?
Yeah, I mean, my memory is when Sears was constructed, when Dick's was constructed, when Target was constructed, the mall was still operational. I mean, frankly, they can't shut the mall down. I mean, we have really wonderful access to 95, of course, from Easttown Road. So, I mean, obviously we're really looking forward to having to solve the traffic problem during construction.
I think it's appropriate now, this is a public hearing, so the public is invited to speak. If you would, please state your name and address for the record and try to keep your comments to around 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Forget it. I should have brought my jelly beans for you guys. I just want to go home. But I'm here for a number of reasons, and I'll finish with the primary reason. I spent half my day with Fitch and Standard & Poor's today to talk about our credit rating. So I'll talk to you about that for a moment. But I've had the good fortune to work with John and Whitney and Michael and David and Joe over the last 5 months. And I'm here as the mayor to tell you that I'm asking for your support for this reg change. I didn't come to it lightly. I've met with Centennial and this group probably 8 or 10 times over the last 5 months. I pursued some of the residual questions that came out of prior meetings. There was some concern that this might hurt downtown Milford. I think a lot of that thinking is now left behind us, where we realize downtown has its own vibe, its own scene. People are still going to come to downtown Milford, and by introducing a new destination, it's not one or the other, it's just another option for people to come and visit. So I think some of that concern has been addressed. There was another concern that they would get the reg change, get approvals, and then sell it off. And if you look at Whitney's presentation, which we talked about in the middle of the summer, somebody said Centennial doesn't have to tell us about themselves, but it's important that you see their staying power and their investment in this and their commitment to stay the course. And that's, I think, evidenced by their investment in the mall as well, and the anticipated improvement in retailers in that mall. Another was, well, the apartments would be approved, but the mall would fall into disrepair. And I can tell you that's not going to happen with Centennial. I also think, I mean, the question came up of 15%. And John and I had a discussion when it was 5. And I said, John, I've been working with you guys for 4 months. You got to do 10. And we went over the numbers. The financial loss of adjusting rents in the millions of dollars. But they came back in good faith to do 10. So I would ask that we gladly accept it. And finally, we look at this as an opportunity to say, well, Centennial needs us. What can we exact in concessions? They come with their hat in their hand. But they don't come with their hat in their hand. They come as partners. And we need this development as much as they do, if not more. Many of us, myself included, we always thought, well, we're waiting for the knight in shining armor to come in on the Amazon and the Google and the biotech. I was just talking to a lobbyist for biotech. She said, biotech's going to always stay close to these universities and their corridors. Well, I think our knight in shining armor did gallop in, but it's not Amazon. This is exciting. And finally, I sat down with Standard & Poor's that 2 years ago downgraded us. And Fitch downgraded us. Why? because we were cutting taxes by $500,000 every year while operational costs continued to grow. We weren't fully funding our pension. We were using contingency funds to make up budget shortfalls. And as I get ready to vacate this office at the end of my term, I will certainly work with my successor to say we need the political courage now to stop with tax cuts and recognize that we need to step up for the sake of our city and our balance sheet and be responsible. The pressures of inflation are impacted residential homeowners, our businesses, and the city of Milford. We need to raise revenue here in Milford. And we may have to go to residential tax increases. We did $500,000 this last year with me as mayor. So it turned the corner a little bit, and the rating agencies were glad to see that. You know what, they were also glad to hear that I was going to come speak tonight in favor of the mall. We need to partner with the Centennials of the world, to put them back online so that we can realize the tax revenue and other residual benefits for the city of Milford. They've negotiated with me and worked with me and David and Joe in good faith. I trust them as partners. And as mayor of the city, I ask you, I encourage you, support this reg change. We need this. And it doesn't stop here at the mall. As I told the rating agencies, we have River Street going up across the street. We have other projects. We have FCP Euro coming in that we need to support, and you guys will hear about. We need to do everything we can to encourage businesses to offset some of the pressures that we're bound to be placing on residential tax payers. For their sake, for the sake of our financial health, and just because it's an exciting plan. We talked about maybe taking out that road you saw in one of the illustrations. But then in a later illustration rendering you saw, they had it shut down for street fairs. There was some concern that if we shut it down, the retail in that area wouldn't get the visibility that it would otherwise get if we had cars going through there. I think where we ended up was we can always shut that road down on occasion. So again, from 10% to working with us to integrating. And the other thing we talked about, the phases I'm comfortable with, 250, we talked about what we might call success metrics. When do you go on to phase 2? When you have certain uptake on retail occupancy and residential occupancy. Maybe it's 60, 80%. But I don't think we need those metrics because Centennial is not going to want to build phase 2 if phase 1 isn't wildly successful. And if it is successful, we all benefit. So again, on behalf of the city, I stuck it out tonight. I did go in and have my jelly beans to get a little sugar boost. But I came to ask you, as your mayor, support this. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. If anyone else would like to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, Rachel Merva, 90 Dart Hill Road. I am speaking in support of these amendments. I'm not going to reiterate all of the comments about the POCD, the Affordable Housing Plan, but really we are so desperate for housing in Milford, and this really will take us that much further. With this plan, we would hopefully improve our crime statistics at the mall, with it being kind of, a lot of empty vacancy. The bus line, it's on the bus line, so it's really a good spot for that. It's already developed land, so we're not knocking trees down and clearing areas. And we do need to revitalize that neighborhood, and we need the revenue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Alling. I live at 390 Pond Point Avenue. Just here to speak today in support of the proposed zoning change. The Post Mall was one of the first places in Milford I visited when I met the person I'm now married to, and she brought me back to her hometown. Used to be a place where we would go visit family and friends to shop or watch a movie or get dinner. And over the years, we've gone less and less. As these large retailers have suffered, they've become less attractive places to visit. But the biggest reason that we don't go to the mall as much anymore is actually that a lot of the friends and family we used to go with have been priced out of Milford. They've had to leave. They're often lifelong Milford residents who have had to leave for more affordable towns. I personally feel that whenever someone has to leave their community because housing costs go up, we lose something collectively. I understand there are those who feel Milford has plenty of apartments, but I know a lot of people who try to find an affordable place to rent here, and that doesn't quite ring true to me. We need to confront the fact that about 48% or 1 in 2 renters are cost burdened by housing here, and for homeowners it's about 1 in 4. I applaud the requirement that 10% of units be protected as affordable under 830G. To me, this is a great opportunity to help make Milford a more affordable place to live and create some affordable home opportunities for residents who sorely need it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Elizabeth Oak, also known as Emmy amongst her friends. I live at 30 Dorinna Place, so I am downtown. So I naturally think there's a lot we have to offer downtown. From an artistic point of view, being an artist, it was something that appealed to me. I want to make sure that whatever they do with farmers markets and crafts shows that it is different from what you already have. I'm all for this development. One major thing that I like about it is it includes affordable housing. It's desperate. I moved to this town 6 years ago. As you can hear from my own accent, I'm not from here. I was born in this country. I've traveled extensively in the Western world and the Third World, which I've seen firsthand. The thing that brought me to Milford was the mixes of financial situations of people. I came out of Greenwich renting. I hated it with a passion. It was a whitewash. I like this town because you have a mixture of poor, middle class, and upper class. It keeps everybody in check in their conduct of behavior. And it makes you think and interact. People communicate with each other. I've seen that less and less over the 6 years I've been here, which I don't like. If it whitewashes itself out, I'm gone. But if you bring in affordable housing, you will be able to bring back the low income and the middle class back in. We all have something to offer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Simonsek. I live at 61 Governors Avenue. This is a pretty big change. I mean, if we're looking at 750 units, that's a pretty big increase to the Milford population. One of the things we talked about was taxes. You're getting more taxes in, but you're also, having to supply a lot more services. So I wanted to have some discussion about how that really does affect the taxpayers. You're taking something that was commercial, and this is what we're seeing in a lot of different places through the city. The Kmart Plaza, there's the place out on Willers Farms. We're seeing a lot of commercial places turning into residential. So they were places that didn't really use a lot of services, but they're paying good taxes. Now we're having places that have a lot of people and are consuming a lot of services. So what the net of that is, I don't know, but that's something, maybe we're increasing the grant list, but we have more we have to spend. So, to have some discussion about that would be good. And we are having, and we just saw from before, we're having high density all over the city. This is like a turbocharged density increase, but everywhere we go, we're getting more and more apartments. And we're changing it right here to make more density. I mean, are we going to have any kind of regulations where we have single-family homes where maybe we can relax having density? It just seems like there's density coming everywhere all the time. Just some things on this development. I don't see a lot of, if you look at a big overview, you don't see much green space. I don't know how that conforms to other apartments, because really this is an apartment complex, not really a mall project. To me, it's an apartment complex project. So how does the green space, how does that compare to other apartment places? Are they following all the regulations for an apartment complex to have green space? So that would be a question. I don't know. Another thing concerning general plan of development, this kind of, you're trying to keep people there, and that's pretty good, but if we're, they're kind of on an island out there. If you wanted to walk or ride your bike, for all those people living in those apartments, you really can't escape there without getting in a car or maybe a bus. So whether there's any plan to try to make, you could try to get to Milford, but you'd have to cross over the on-ramps and off-ramps in 95, and that would be tremendously dangerous. So whether there's any plan to help those people to get off of there some way other than by automobile would be another issue to come up with. And I think that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'll be quick. It's been a long night. My name is Teresa Eek. I live at 47 Point Beach Drive. I'm really excited about this project. I'm certainly in favor of the zone change. We need more housing. We all know that we need more housing. This goes a long way towards addressing that need. And we need housing for people who work here, people who take care of our kids, take care of our elderly, work in our grocery stores, teach our kids. And this would absolutely help. Because this is a new build, and I'm really excited about the sustainability aspect, it would be lovely if the housing was also accessible. None of us ever knows when we're going to end up in a wheelchair. So accessibility would be great. And I think that this is a great way for Milford to demonstrate that we can be a leader in this kind of housing. I think other communities are going to look at us and go, they did a pretty good job there. We could do that too. So thank you.
Thank you much. If the applicant would like to take the floor again, that's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can be very brief, and I certainly appreciate all the positive comments by members of the public, as well as the positive letters that we received over the past couple of days. You're talking about density. This is the place to put it. Again, going back to your own reports, this is the place to put it. In terms of city services, we plow the snow, we do the garbage, we do all that. And the numbers that we gave you in terms of increase to the bottom line, in terms of taxes to the city, those are supremely conservative. It takes into account any municipal services that may be provided. So everything that the mayor said with regard to the positive tax impact takes into account the modest amount of services the city would be providing. So again, we very much appreciate all your time and attention, and for your attention over the years, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue and the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadie.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the comments that were made on the issue of affordable housing. I'm asking that we don't make a decision tonight for two reasons. We have one less member of the board before us. I think we should be given the ability to look at the previous materials. We may not have the memory that Attorney Nuff does, which is just to find where we are. And I have concerns about the exact language of two sections. One is number 2 on 4.9. 3.92A1, I think. But anyways, the one that talks about no more than 250 dwelling units should be approved in a 2-year period. And I am concerned about paragraph 6, which deals with statute 830G. And we may have to refer this to the Office of the City Attorney. The point is that there's been a substantial discussion in the legislature about whether that's going to be changed, and there's been bills that have been put forth. I just don't want to have a situation where if we do a zone change and we don't have the proper language, that it defeats the ability to have affordable housing. Just my thoughts.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Does anyone?
I agree with Mr. Sadi.
Okay, so I guess it looks like we want to keep this open until next meeting.
Chairman Quish, why keep it open to the next meeting?
Well, Mr. Sadi gave his reasons.
I want to give my reasons why I don't think we need to.
Sure, it's open discussion.
I think we've been presented with these materials. I think what was presented in the 2 rejected applications is immaterial. That was then, this is now. This is a new application that stands on its own. And I think the applicant has given us all materials we need to make an informed, reasoned decision. If I should say Attorney Sadi has issue with language of the statute or of the regulation, on some hypothetical potential change in 830G, which I don't care what the legislature is doing, they're not in session right now. Laws change all the time. I don't think that should be a bar for us to vote on this right now.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
If it helps at all, the 830G reference there is to a standard, because this is not an 830G project. And it's similar to other zones that we have that exact language, that you can build housing to an 830G standard, which would still be in effect and was in effect even when we had the moratorium, because it's specifically called out in our zoning regulations as being there. So that was never affected by the moratorium. We didn't get any applications to put them there, but that's a standard that has been in our regulations for years. And if at some point in the future the statutes change, that would be the time to look at our regulations to bring them into sync, change, leave alone. It depends, whatever's happening in the future, to take care of it then. But to stall this now because of a hypothetical change in the future of regulations, I don't think is necessarily wise.
Okay. Mr. Sadi.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, we can disagree on things, but this is not done for stalling. It's not done for stalling. I just think we have a major change here, and we should make sure that everything is done properly, protecting both the persons that are making this application and the citizens of the city of Milford. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just 2 quick things.
1 second. I'm going to hear from if anyone else on the board wants to say anything.
I'll just say I don't see anything here that couldn't be addressed later if it turned out to be an egregious problem with the zoning. So I would be in favor of voting tonight.
Okay. One quick comment. If there are 2 board members that are uncomfortable or would prefer to put it down, it might be in the applicant's best interest to not risk them going against a motion to approve, knowing that you have a higher bar because it is a reg change. Just
providing those affordable housing units. And I think there are two different answers, but related. First of all, as David can allude to, or Joe, anybody else, once there is an affordability plan that is in place, and these units would have an affordability plan because the same criteria apply, that is what is the statute in effect at that time is what governs those units from the Department of Economic and Community Development's perspective. So there's an affordability plan, it files with the city, but there's also a deed restricted on the land records. So you would have zoning enforcement authority under Section 812 through Stephen Harris to enforce the requirement that there be these 10% affordable units, because otherwise it would constitute, under the affordability plan, it would constitute a zoning violation. Secondarily, if the next concern is how do we make sure that these units stay affordable, and in a way that theoretically, if the city wanted to make sure they count from a moratorium standpoint, and this was actually a question that came up in the context of the moratorium, Department of Housing looks at those based on the statute that's in effect at the time. So when the when the statute was initially adopted in 1989, there were certain percentages of the number of affordable units, 20% of the development for X number of years, was amended a number of years later, 30 years, until you get to the version that's in existence today. Each of those units is counted based upon when it's approved. So sort of consistent with what David was saying, there's an affordability plan that operates year to year, but there's also this component of the deed restriction and how the state would look at it to make sure that those units are counted, and one, from the city side, and two, from the ensuring that the developer provides them to you. Happy to answer anything else.
Thank you for that. Any questions at this point? Go ahead, John.
No, we're all set. I mean, as I said, we would very much like to get a vote this evening. I mean, if you're so inclined, Mr. Chairman, if you want to, take a vote on whether or not to close the hearing, I mean, obviously, that's your call. I don't know what else is to be gained by keeping the hearing open. I think we've had a robust discussion. The discussion, frankly, has gone on, several years. We think that, the mayor's support, the public support, our consistency with all the plans and reports, I think demonstrates, the need to act quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to make a statement. I think that there is and has been a lot of work to accommodate a lot of the issues that were brought up in our previous go-arounds. And I think this is a better plan than the last one, and better again than I am in favor of it. I want it to pass, but I would be willing to wait if it's something that the board thinks they want to consider it further. But it's a great plan. It's a great asset to Milford, and I think you sensitively listened to the concerns over the last several years, and I'm quite pleased with it myself. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve as presented the petition of John Duff Esquire for changes to Article 3, Section 3.9, Shopping Center Design District, Article 5, Section 5.1, Parking and Loading Regulations, and Article 11, Section 11.2, other terms. The Commission finds the regulation change consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development. Effective date, October 27th, 2023.
Second.
And just as a little housekeeping. I don't know if I said to close the public hearing. Can we take it as accepted, or do we need to close the public hearing and hear the motion again?
If you would like to close the public hearing and you could just accept what had already been said, you could
Okay.
for the record.
Yeah, so we would like to close the public hearing, so it is closed, and if we can use the language that John just gave us as the motion. Big has that. And we have Joe Castagnoli seconded. Is there further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Austin?
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli?
Yes.
Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Cater?
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian?
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer?
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi?
I'll abstain.
Chairman Quish?
I am with the motion. Motion passes. Congratulations and good luck with the project.
Thank you so much.
Attorney Nuff, are you going to withdraw that lawsuit?
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
If we could just exit quietly so we can finish our meeting.
We do an effective date. Motion?
Yeah, he did. Okay, we have both 242 Buckingham Avenue and 695 West Avenue that have been postponed until October 17th. Excuse me all, if you could please exit quietly. Thank you, we have other business.
Not much.
Yeah. Old business, none. Liaison report,
No report?
no report. Yeah, well, we're going to get to that right this second. Our subcommittee reports, David, if you would.
So two things. We are planning on having first a regulation subcommittee meeting, which would be next week on the 11th, which is a Wednesday. And then we're advertising for the public hearing for adoption of the POCD, which will be on Tuesday, October 24th. That'll be a special meeting in person here.
Great, and we do have the room.
And we do have the room, that's why I could say it.
Great. Approval of minutes, do I have a motion? Second, without objection. Chair's report, just thank you for allowing the public to speak on quite a contentious issue. It's not a public hearing, but I'm glad that we all agreed and let him speak. Staff report.
Very quickly, in your package, you received a couple of things. One is a copy of the presentation that was made by the Community Development Office's consultant on the strategic economic plan for the city. So at your leisure, you can read that. Also, you were given a flyer for your next opportunity through the Council of Governments for your commissioner training. That training can be done either in person or there at their offices in North Haven. So I would avail yourselves, those of you who would need that education credits. That's a really good opportunity.
Mr. Quish, just going back to the minutes, would you note that I am abstaining because I was not at the minutes? I'm abstaining from the vote on the minutes. Yes, please.
Motion to adjourn. We're done. Thank you all.